All right, guys, welcome to Prepared, your weekly TBC breakdown. This is episode 23. We've been doing this for almost, more than half a year now. This is kind of crazy. We're up to 23 already. Yeah, I guess so.
I don't think so.
I think so. Half a year. Wait, what year is 52?
Yeah, I was
25.
like,
but we skipped.
You're a little premature.
We skipped. Like
1 week or
1 week.
two.
Okay, maybe 1 week away for like half a year.
Maybe two. Almost
half a year. We got some fun stuff today. So we're going to talk about the Oceania PvP situation. Sometimes players are wrong, and sometimes they make mistakes in requesting things they shouldn't request, which we'll get into. And there's some things with raid comps as well. We're going to talk about raid comps for Phase 2. Why dueling's dead is another PvP topic as well, which is actually interesting. It's interesting in the meta and how people don't do that anymore. And there's Asmongold's new list for what he wants to see in Classic. So we're going to talk about Classic Fresh because it is on PTR, or it was on PTR. There was a Classic Fresh server up with, I think it was like Phase 2 plus Mal and Chrono Boons and some tech like that.
Yeah, it was at least Phase 1 plus Chrono Boons.
Yeah.
So
I think it was Phase 2 plus Damo, I think was the research. Yeah. But people weren't exactly sure because you couldn't make new characters. Characters there.
Gotcha.
But then we have lightning capacitor tech. So Zarin's coming at us with the lightning capacitor tech. Last week we had the dazzling longsword tech. So this week we have the lightning capacitor tech. More fun things that that you need to go prepare. And then we have some filler topics as well that might be interesting towards the end. So I thought we could talk about content creation in WoW and what content creators need to do to succeed going forwards, and just WoW in general. It's a really weird thing that there's WoW is one of the few games I know where people have been playing WoW for a really long time, like a really, really exceedingly long time to be playing just one game. I think that's an interesting topic to talk about as well. Mm-hmm. But Zarin, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing well, man. The ear infection, I had lost my hearing for a good bit. It had just really cleared up 2 days ago. So yeah, like I said last time, they had put me on a steroid and I had eardrops and stuff, and I'm still doing that with eardrop wise. But good Lord, dude, being able to hear out of my left ear again, almost completely, it feels good, man, because I thought I was gonna lose the hearing in my left ear and be like the guy who's like, talk to me this side, this is my good ear. And I was like when you're 31, that's when it starts happening. The body just falls completely fucking apart. So I'm glad it's not 31, maybe it's 32, and we get to go another year without losing our hearing completely.
Hey, so, if we use Korean age, Zarin, you're actually
that's
33 or 32 already.
That's true.
Yeah. So you made it.
Because doesn't your birthday start
when you're born?
0?
Yeah, you start at 1 when you're born, and then they celebrate you're already the next year old once January 1st comes along. They count it as by the year. So yeah, you're always 1 or 2 years older in Korean age, depending on when your birthday is and what date it is, which makes it very confusing sometimes.
Yeah, I would definitely be no, I'd only be 30. I'd be 32. I'd be 33 for 3 months, from January to March. Then I'd have my actual birthday. Yeah. So, damn. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, that's Korean date talk for the TBC podcast.
Yeah, I like to think I'm the noob in the 30s bracket instead of smurfing in the 29 bracket. So. Yeah.
But so let's talk WoW. Let's talk players being very wrong. Let's talk the Oceania PvP server issues right now. I know a lot of Oceania server people have been asking me to bring this up because it's messed up. The Oceania PvPers are in this really bad place right now.
Okay.
So what happened originally? What happened originally? We actually talked about this on the podcast where when they were first making those changes. So the original problem was that Blizzard first put Oceania with NA in the bracketing and groups and everything, and that just made a situation where the Oceania players were playing at 200, 300, 400 ping depending on where they are, and it wasn't great. It wasn't a great experience to go from like 1-digit, 2-digit ping up to 300 ping.
Yeah.
So a lot of players complained and said, we don't want this. We want our own brackets. We want to be separate, etc., etc. And Blizzard actually listened. That was one of the things where Blizzard was like, okay, well, enough people are complaining about it. We're going to do this. The Oceania server players are not happy. So they took it out. They took it out. They're no longer with the NA bracket. But a lot of people didn't think far enough ahead to think like, wait, if we're not in their bracket, we don't have enough players to actually hit that gladiator level. And to make it worse, Blizzard kind of compounded it in that not only are they in their own bracket, but they count in the NA bracket at the same time. So for titles, they count on the NA ladder. And but they only can play versus other Oceania players. So they're in this awkward situation now where the Oceania players can only play versus other Oceania players, but they're being judged on the NA rankings.
Yeah, which they don't get to play enough to get like 2,600 without waiting in hour-long queues every time.
Yeah.
So
yes.
There's like zero way. One thing I will say is somebody in chat, Menarch said, "You think you do, but you think you don't, but you do." That's backwards. It's you think you do, but you don't. Was the saying, and I don't think this is what you and I asked for, because our suggestion was pair them with Korea or China or a closer server than North America, right? That was a suggestion we ultimately landed on, because if the player base isn't large enough, it's like, well, you should just go ahead and pair them with a different, closer server that is, going to give them better ping. Because the whole issue is ping versus queue times and population. Well, there's a way to lower the ping while also having more population. It's like, why are you pairing them with a server that's literally all the way across the fucking ocean from them? That was the thing that we arrived on. So I actually think like Blizzard is still not doing the right thing here, and saying that players wanted something and got it and now they're unhappy with it, I think is a little bit disingenuous, because I don't think this is what you and I suggested ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So,
and as well as that, I mean, it's not really what people were saying as well.
We got
because,
half.
Yeah, it's like they gave them, if they're gonna separate them, they should also separate the titles, so that at least like they're being judged versus only Oceania players.
Yeah,
because right now it's just like the worst of both worlds.
Because then it's relative in the Oceania, where it's like, oh, this guy is number one, but he's 2,200 because you can't play enough games. Well, at least he's getting gladiators still, instead of literally being fucking like a conqueror or whatever fucking title you get for third. Duelist. He's Mr. Duelist. Mr. Duelist himself. Yeah.
It's rough, because I know there's a team in Oceania who's something like 80 plus wins, single digit losses, and they're only, I think that like 2250 or something. Yeah. And which isn't Glad range at all. The Glad range is already almost 2400 on NA. So they basically have no hope of getting Gladiator. They literally cannot get Gladiator in Oceania because it just gets so hard. Unless you just want to wait for like 2-hour queues every time and then lose 5 billion rating if you lose. It is really rough. They basically have to have like a 100% win rate and wait in 2-hour queues constantly, and that's just not gonna happen. That's just not gonna happen. But I mean, it's also a thing that not everyone in Oceania requested. It wasn't the high rank community. The high rank community kind of, a lot of them recognize that, hey, if we're not with the NA guys, this could be really bad for our queue times, and we might not be able to play the game. And I think it's something a lot of Oceania players didn't realize as well. The ones who weren't highly ranked, they didn't really think about the queue times as much. They would think about the ping. And so now they're kind of screwed. I don't know what's going to happen with them, but unless Blizzard makes a change, no one in Oceania is getting Glad at all.
Damn. Like, I just think Blizzard need to do... It's getting frustrating at this point, because I still can't see my fucking belt, Snow. My belt is still not on my goddamn character. There's something about human female belts and like dwarf female belts. They just disappear. They don't appear. You have a midriff. I don't know what's going on. These tiny little things just keep adding up. And then there's these big things that have been here for like these months at this point, man, where I'm like, I understand you guys have a small team. I understand that, all these other things are going on, but like, there's some obvious fixes here. Like why, and if here's the thing is, there are obvious fixes here. And when you don't do the obvious fix, I would like visibility into the decision as to why you're not doing it this way, right? And that's something I think like some game companies that have gained player trust over time, like Riot Games have done, where it's like, hey, we're not moving the servers to LA because it's giving people on East Coast like bad ping. And it makes it so like, hey, if we can divide that ping up amongst everybody, they'll have more equal footing. And then so now people can like attack their logic and be like, well, your professional scene is all on the West Coast. You don't have a pro scene on the East Coast. You should be appealing to these guys. They're the ones who have to practice and play on LAN, which is going to have better ping. So like, where's the practice environment for them, at least in solo queue? And so you can like argue with their logic. Here, it's kind of like you just seem stupid for not doing it this way, and we don't know why you're not doing it this way, right? It's like, why are they not pairing them with a different server? Why are they still like paired with NA in terms of their brackets? Because all you have to do is come out and say, hey, this is a mistake. It won't be like this when Gladiator rolls out, right? And then we're all fine, right? And bitching and moaning stops. Just talk to us like that. Just fucking talk to us. Tell us what's going on. Tell us why it is the way it is. Tell us what you're going to do about it, or why you think it's okay the way it is. And then we can actually have a dialogue and a discussion instead of wondering what you're thinking. And that's probably been my biggest gripe with Blizzard over the last 2 years playing Classic again, is I don't know what they're thinking half the time, and they won't tell us. So we just assume that they don't play their own game half the time. We don't know if they're working on a fix for something, right? We don't know if they don't like world buffs. And it's like phase 3, and we're like, what are they going to do? Are they going to do anything about world buffs? Phase 4, it's like, are they going to do anything about world buffs? Phase 5, you're like, man, Nax is right around the corner. I don't know if they're going to do anything about world buffs. And then they finally do something about world buffs, and you're like, well, shit, it's like fucking way too late. Like, what the hell? Like, what the fuck is this? So to me, it does feel like they're not being visible with us, and it just keeps hurting them. Like, I feel like they only have things to gain, because if you come out and say something stupid, at least you're where you already are in our brains, where we think you're dumb. Like, if you don't talk to us, we're going to assume the worst, right? That's where the trust is right now. We're not going to go, oh, they got it. It's good. They fixed things multiple times. It's going to be fine. I trust Blizzard. Just talk to us, because if you don't talk to us, you're literally at a 1 out of 10 where we're assuming you are, where we're like, this is not going to get fixed. You're not working on it. You don't care. And if you come out and say something stupid, or you say, we think this is fine, at least you're still at a 1 out of 10. And we have no, like, at least we know now. So yeah, I would appreciate visibility, Blizzard. If anybody there like watches this, like this, it would be really helpful. I think it's only a win for you in terms of your community. And if you can consistently do it, it will get people off your back. And actually like allow us to follow your what's the fucking word? It's the your project delivery, right? Like where your project is, if you're working on it, and if you plan to deliver. So that type of flow for us, like at least include us in the process to some degree, even if it's not the ideation process or the beginning of it. When you guys introduce something, at least like include us in the feedback loop for reiteration, and let us know what's going on. So that's my biggest complaint with all of this.
Yeah,
this is not like a new thing.
It's been annoying. It's not just the PvP as well. It's even just the upcoming phase. We still don't know when phase 2 is coming, and we're getting to this weird spot where people are trying to plan out what they're going to do and such. But it might just launch. Half the people have just no trust in Blizzard to think that they're going to give us enough heads up, and a lot of people are just expecting they're going to spring in on us with 2 weeks to go, and then everyone's going to scramble and such, because we haven't heard anything. We literally don't know when phase 2 is coming. We're just everyone's just making assumptions because we don't hear anything. Everyone's just assuming like, oh, maybe phase 2 got delayed because New World got pushed back. And so maybe that's what's happening, but they haven't told us anything at all.
But why can't Blizzard give us an assumed date and then push it back if they need to? Like, other companies do this all the time. And I think Blizzard did it with Shadowlands, and people were like, I would rather have a good game because this one's not ready. And people were like, thank you for pushing it back half the time. And then they were like, well, this kind of sucks that it lines up with Nax release and shit like that. But I really firmly believe that they should just be fucking talking to us about these things. And it's just disappointing. It's just disappointing, man.
Yeah.
Like, I love the game, and we don't know when phase 2 is coming out, like you said. And the biggest thing I think for me in terms of this phase 2 shit is people are planning around it already. It's on PTR. It's almost been on PTR for 3 weeks now. Which, by the way, they are fixing things on PTR constantly, so they are doing things. They are doing things. But is it just me, or like, does Blizzard like not do patch notes anymore for
true.
fucking classic?
I don't think they released them. Yeah, because
like,
there has been updates to PTR, like a lot of them, and
yeah,
I'm not sure if they've been posted.
Like, for example, Leo Theris, the second or third boss of Serpent Shrine Cavern, or the fifth boss, sixth boss, depending on your order. When he hit his percentage where he splits into the demon and the human simultaneously, when we first did him, he was you could attack him. He would like kneel down and you could just beat the shit out of him, pop lust, and like burn him, and then only have to deal with the demon for like 5 seconds. Now he becomes untargetable and then splits, right? Tiny things like that. I think they fixed Solarian. Alar was not spawning ads during phase 1. Now he is. And so there's all these different things that keep getting changed. And like, there's no like report on it where it's like, I want to know the work you're doing. Otherwise we assume you're doing nothing, right? Like, people are going to be like, oh, are they even fixing things on PTR, right? So I actually think that, why is it that like Wowhead is where you go get your fucking news on what's been updated, instead of like actual like Blizzard fucking WoW like pages? That's the thing for me. I'm just like, where are the patch notes in the fucking client? Just like, please, just a tiny thing. Just give us your fucking notes. These are notes that you're literally pushing internally for like what's being delivered. Just fucking tell us.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I don't understand.
There's even entire industries in other games, like just around patch notes and changes and things like that. And we don't even, we barely get that. We barely get that in WoW. Because it's just this lack of communication, especially in Classic in particular. I feel like someone in chat pointed out that like a lot of times if they give us stuff for Classic, it's kind of tacked on there at the end of like a retail kind of thing. Even when they do Classic changes, it's just tacked on there. Oh yeah, we did these little changes in Classic as well, Guide Warriors. But here's a whole list of stuff we did in Shadowlands.
Yeah, and like I want to know like whenever they do a fucking post, and it's very clear to us where like, they're like, hey, when the season ends, honor does roll over. Arena points don't. Arena points get converted to honor, 10 points for every 1 arena point. And it's like, damn, thank you. I appreciate that. Right? Like, that helps you plan. And now they just need to tell us when. Because like, I was on PTR, and you know how we were like, we don't know how much the honor is going to get reduced? On PTR currently, the entire blue set is half cost, and all the gems are half cost too. Like, I had to farm, because I have like on my elemental shaman, I have my bis pants for next phase from Kazakh. Yeah. So I went and farmed like the 12 spell power gem and then the crit spell power gem from PvP and put them both in there. Those gems are 8,000 and like 6.5 thousand honors. So it was like 14.5k for PvE gems. Next patch, those gems are 3k honor and 4k honor. Oof. They're half price. They're literally halved. And then you know how like the blue PvP pants are 20k honor? They're 10k. The gloves are 6k. Like, it's literally halved. But the problem is, next patch they're introducing the set that's based on reputation anyway. So you just go to the vendors and buy them, and they're exactly the same as that set. So I'm just like, you're kind of doing that too late. Why aren't you pushing these honor changes now? Because I feel like every day they don't do something is like a day like more people can like, you know, fall out of love with the game. And that's the problem for me, man, is they just don't talk to us, man. Yeah. Jake, what's up? 5 rogues per roster.
Jake just rose in here. It's like 5 rogues per roster. Perfect phase 2.
No. One rogue per roster, guaranteed warglaves. I don't know why you'd want 4 other people in the rest.
Oh wait, no, I agree with Jake. 4 other rogues. I can make a few outs. Let's join Jake's guild. We'll get some
Oh,
war
God.
graves. We'll get some
God.
war graves going.
Yeah, would that be your third DST? No, it's good to see Jake, dude. Jake's a rogue player, IRL streamer. Fucking good dude.
He's
good
actually
dude.
relevant to one of the topics later, which is interesting. Is like content creators who also play WoW, but they understand the limitations of WoW, so they actually try to not stream WoW or not play WoW
Yeah.
on stream as much.
Dude, I ran into God, what was it? It was I was in a heroic underbog group with a druid called Mizkif, and I was like, is this fucking Mizkif? Like, one of the people in the groups whispered me, like, I don't know if this is Mizkif or not. And then this druid proceeds to like run into packs over and over again, like literally, like we're running back into the instance. People haven't rebuffed or gotten mana, and he runs into the next pack, and he does this like 4 times. So we've wiped in heroic underbog, like before we've even got to the first boss, we've wiped at least 5 times, and I'm just like, holy shit, what is going on? And then somebody's like, yeah, this has to be Mizkif.
Did you see his clip when he was just running in there in Asmon's raid on like, I think it was a girl. He just ran straight in there.
Yeah. So somebody was like, I'm a fan of Mizkif's. It's like, yeah, that's Mizkif. He's in the guild Big Rooster. And they were like, yeah, that's a Mizkif move. And also, it seems like he can't sit still, which is definitely like a little bit of the ADHD. So he was like, yeah, he's like, that's Mizkif. He can't wait for you to rebuff and get a food buff or anything. He's just walking right in. It's like, why aren't we going? Like, oh, God bless, dude. God bless Mizkif. Because I've never seen him stream WoW. I've never seen Mizkif stream it, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the interesting thing is that so many streamers, I mean, we'll talk more about this later, but so many streamers started in WoW and then they just realize like, oh, there's a limit to this. I gotta do other stuff and such, and they don't do WoW content as much anymore. Or at all, really, in Mizkif's case.
Yeah. You got to be this was a topic later on of like, you know, how WoW content creators should survive. But we'll get to that eventually. But right now we're talking about finishing up the lack of clarity into decisions and P2 and all of that, because I really want to plan around it. People want to plan around it, right? People want to take a vacation from work to like play when it drops. We don't know. Like, people are saying there's a 2-week grace period for Arena. Like, season's going to end and P2 will release. And then there's 2 weeks where Arena won't be available. But like, you can like spend Arena points on the previous season's gear. And that's before Honor rolls over. Yeah. So like, Arena gear from season 1, basically there's going to be 2 weeks where you can't gain any Honor or something like that, or can't gain any Arena points or something. I don't know if that's true. But like, basically, there's going to be a 2-week grace period. I don't know what the grace period entails, but it's between phase 1 ending and phase 2 Arena starting. And you will be able to buy P1 Arena gear, not P2, but P1 Arena gear at a reduced price. And then your Arena points after those 2 weeks will become Honor. So there's going to be a window where the Arena gear is cheaper and your points are still there, right? But this is something that I've heard from other people, and I just haven't seen in a fucking patch note. So I don't know if that's true.
That's been so confusing as well. Like, that's been a huge discussion in the Rogue Discord the other day, where people already throw some blows there because people couldn't decide what they meant when they said that season 1 gear is going to be reduced. Like, when is this coming in? Is it going to be in between seasons, like just before they take away our Arena points? We have no idea. Like, this is not clear. We have no idea.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm playing Elemental Shaman in PvP now, and I'm like really enjoying it. And I want to play some like, I want to play more 3s and stuff like that. But I'm sitting there going, I don't know if I should save up my Honor right now to buy the new off pieces when this next season starts. Because I'm like, if the next season's 4 weeks away, it's better for me to buy the Honor now. Honor pieces now, get the resilience, and potentially get to a higher Arena rating, and maybe get 1 or 2 more pieces of Arena gear before next season, right? Yeah. That's going to be a better use of my Honor. So if they don't tell me how relevant or how long my Honor gear is going to be relevant right now, people are going to hoard it and be like, well, I don't know when to spend this. And then they're going to feel like they made a bad decision if it ends up being too far away, right? And they're going to be like, why did I hold on to this? I could have had like, you know, maybe 100 or 150 more rating every week if I had just actually bought the resilience gear. So yeah, it's hard to plan around, and it makes it so like there's just this enigma, and I don't know what it is where Blizzard likes to do the whole under promise over deliver, so that they can't like fuck up expectations on releases, and they give you a 2-week warning. I don't know why they do that, because gaming now is a lot of like more like visibility. People like to be like shown what's behind the curtain and be like, hey, this is what's going to happen in the next like month. This is our process. This is what we're planning. So
here's the problem as well, is that in the old days, people had the trust in Blizzard that, hey, maybe even if the communication isn't perfect and such, when they release it's going to be good.
It'll be a great game.
Yeah, it's going to be good. They're going to make good changes. This is going to be a great game. But they don't have that trust anymore. So at this stage, they kind of have to tell us these things because their track record isn't good with a lot of things. So people don't trust them to make the good changes. We want to have the feedback because it's clear that sometimes, I mean, we saw with the drums changes. God, if they didn't get feedback on the drums changes, it could have been way, way, way worse than it is now.
But it's not even right. It's not even right. And that's the thing. It's not even right.
And even the change we have now isn't right.
Why did you give us 8-yard range drums and not the 40-yard range drums, and still gave us tinnitus? Because the whole point of doing that was supposed to be, not everyone in your raid needs to require leatherworking, and this is what we've done. We've made it really small, and it's like, okay, that's not going to solve the problem. Add tinnitus. And they were like, you're right. We added tinnitus. And it's like, are you going to get us the long range drums? It's like tinnitus. but now we have to stack up and like tinnitus. It's like, what the fuck? Just give us the long range drums now. Why they literally fuck? Why?
Yeah, I mean, this goes into some of the stuff they've changed with the BGs as well. I really feel they're going the wrong way about it when they took away the group BG queuing for quite a while. I think it's back. Someone told me it might be back. You can finally do 15-man BGs and such.
It's bad because when I 15 stack, I never run into a horde Premade anymore. Yeah. Because you guys probably have to 15 stack and wait.
Yeah.
So I literally just win every single AB and Eye of the Storm in 5 minutes. So it's like really bad for you guys, because imagine being a horde guy soloing and then you run into a 15-man alliance like Premade.
It's just not worth doing BGs a lot of the time. Yeah,
you literally get 0 bonus honor. You get 0 bonus honor, and you get like 1 honorable kill. Maybe.
I mean, there's a constant meme where it's like, I can go queue for a BG for 30 minutes and then lose in 5 minutes to an alliance Premade, or I can just go kill some alliance over at one of the summoning stones and get more honor than I could have gotten all that wasted time in the BG. It's just like not even worth BGing queue right now. And like, I feel like every time they make changes these days with PvP, it feels like they're trying to force people to play parts of the game that suck and then play it the way they envisioned it originally way back in the day, versus just realizing like, hey, this isn't a modern solution. People don't want to play that game anymore. You need to come up with a solution that doesn't force people to do stuff that sucks. Like right now, it feels like they're saying, oh, well, you guys don't want to fight Premades? Okay, so we took away your Premades for a couple weeks, or was it like 3 weeks, I think? We couldn't Premade BG, so now everyone has to do the stupid BG grind, and it's slow for everyone. So now have fun. So it's slower for everyone now. But the solution, I feel like the solution shouldn't be pushing people to do shitty things in the game. It should be finding a better solution or making people actually want to actively do BGs. Like, that's a big part of the thing, is that a lot of people don't want to do the BG grinds because the BGs aren't that fun if you're not in a full Premade. It's really unfun. So why are we just taking the unfun bit and saying like, oh yeah, you guys got to do that unfun thing, instead of just trying to focus and try to find more ways to make it fun for the players to actually do?
It's hard because game developers not only have to create something fun, they have to create something that can't be played in an unfun way, you know? Yeah. Because if there's a way to optimize it and make it unfun, we're going to fucking do it, dude. Like the rank 14 grind, it's like, oh yeah, honor's going to be like, the Grand Marshal shit. And then it's like, nah, we're just going to bracket break and like, or we're just going to make brackets and shit. We're going to figure out the system. And we're just going to do this. We're going to take turns, and it's like, what? Like, wait, it's supposed to be the Grand Marshal's like the person who's like the best PvPer. It's like, nah, just the person who has the most time. That's all it is. Just time. That's fine. And it's like, fuck, what the shit? So yeah, they have to find ways to make something that can't be abused in an unfun way. It's like the most optimal way to do something can't be unfun, and even like the second most optimal way can't be unfun, because then that's mage boosting, and people just fucking mage boost because it's convenient. So it's like, yeah, I'll level through mage boosting. It's like, oh, that's a little slower than like mob tagging, or like, you know, even like doing questing in like the fastest way possible. It's like, yeah, but I get to AFK, and I like doing that. So it's like, So yeah, being a game designer, developer, fucking sucks.
Yeah.
So,
especially when they have as small a team as it seems they have for Classic. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, while we're talking about PvP, I'm sure you've noticed there's no one dueling nowadays, right? There's no one dueling.
Yeah.
Dueling is dead. There's no one sits outside Ogrima. I'm sure a lot of PvPers from back in the day remember that used to be the thing. If you were the PvPers on your server, you would hang out outside Ogrima or wherever it is. I assume Alliance do it outside Ironforge or similar, and you just duel. That's what you do. You just hung around and duel. And
yeah, this is like how it worked.
Now.
This is like how it worked back in the day. Is people stopped dueling outside Ironforge and Orgrimmar because Shattrath was the main hub, and like if you want to like go do anything or farm in between queues or anything like that, you got to be in Shattrath. It's the way to go farm shit. So it was like you don't duel outside because one, there's no place to really duel outside Shat without being just absolutely ganked by like Horde or Alliance, or somebody swings by and goes, hey, easy kill. Sure, there's like patrolling guards, but there's still like, those guards are weak as fuck, dude. Those guards literally, like, I don't know why the Outland guards are like, they're not even, God, they're like the incel guard. And then you have the fucking Chad guards from fucking the Lights Hope Chapel that just like absolutely gangbang you, and you're just like, why aren't these guys going into Nax and fucking them up? Like, where are the Cenarian the fucking Cenarian hold guards, the guys who slow you by like 99%? It's like, what the and like chase you all the way across the entire place, and you just absolutely die. They're like super fast too. Like, I don't know. So there's like no place to really duel. And people are just going to queue skirmish at that point, right? Like they're just going to queue skirmish and try to like do it that way, because dueling isn't really like a skill anymore that people think is worthwhile. Whereas before it was like one of the only ways to really flex skill. Now it's just show off arena rating. Yeah. I think that's kind of like the thing now is, why would you go outside and duel when you could just you could just grind arena or do skirmishes to warm up, right? Or some people fucking do, like they go into skirmish with somebody and they tell that person to leave, right? You 2v2 skirmish and then they leave so you can like 1v2.
I mean, I it's because there's no good way. Honestly, there's no good way to practice right now. It's very hard to practice things. Like one of the things I've been trying to do is I've been trying to practice my shadow step kicks, like watching full focus shadow step kicks. But I need a very specific scenario for that to happen, for me to focus shadow step kick. And if I skew for skirmish, it doesn't happen half the time because half the team is rogue. And like I need like a specific situation of this guy has to cast and I have to open on this guy. So I'm actually in the club where I'm okay with if my partner leaves, because then at least I can try to set up the situation where I can actually practice that specific scenario, because there's no other way for me to practice. Like the other way I've been doing is I literally fly out into the open world, find 2 caster mobs, and literally just pretend I'm attacking one as a player, and then set the other one as focus and try to like shadow step kick him when he casts and such, which is really scuffed. Which is really, really scuffed, because I die half the time to random people ganking me as well. Because they're like, what is this rogue doing? He's just sitting here with 2 costume while I was getting destroyed by them.
Yeah, you just look like a bot.
Yeah. And I'm sure the people in skirmish get very confused as well when I'm just like on one guy and I just randomly shadow step kick like a frostbolt out of nowhere. And I actually found that the best practice is in BGs. In BGs, and I'm sure like the people are very confused as well when I purposely walk up to where I know an enemy rogue is and let him open on me just so I can practice doing my rogue anti-rogue scenario. And it's just like that's the only way to practice, because dueling just doesn't exist. I did see someone bring out the idea though that because even in original TBC there was still a little bit of dueling, even though people congregated in Shattrath, but now it's just non-existent. And I almost feel like I saw someone say that it might be because of things like Discord, where before people in WoW would hang out in WoW and like you would kind of log on and just hang out in outside Ogrima or whatever such. But now the people don't really do that as much anymore. They talk and hang out in Discord. But I don't know how true that is. But someone brought the idea that maybe it's because of stuff like Discord where you don't have to hang out in WoW anymore. You can hang out with your friends in Discord and chat and post memes and all of that without just standing outside and dueling instead.
Yeah, I mean, that was, you had Ventrilo and like TeamSpeak and stuff like that back in the day. So I'm not sure how much I will put like weight on that. So I don't think that's completely like the reason why. It's probably compounding factors.
I mean, there's the idea as well that it could be because of layering, but I don't know. Layering is slowly going away on a lot of servers though. But the thing is, it's gone away on the servers that are dead. So there's not that many people there anyway. I have heard some people say that maybe when we have the Dalaran sewers, that maybe dueling will come back because that's where everyone hangs out to PvP and queue anyway.
Yeah,
and it's just a convenient spot for everyone to go and duel.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know what will happen. I don't know what happened. I hope dueling makes a return at some point though, because it's a really fun. It's just a good way to practice. It's a really good way to practice it, but it just doesn't exist anymore. It just unfortunately doesn't really exist. But Zyrene, what are your thoughts for the rusters for phase 2? So there's something interesting I was thinking about the other night actually, because melee are actually performing fine in SSC for passes and such and damage and all of that. Rogues, warriors are doing great actually overall. And
then there's Tempest Keep.
Then there's Tempest Keep, which not great for the melee as much, but still it's not the end of the world. But yesterday I was doing Morrogrim, and then I was realizing, wait, this is way harder than the other week we did Morrogrim. Then I realized like, oh wait, we have extra melee this week, and we have less casters who can AoE, and this actually exponentially increases the difficulty of this fight if we can't kill the Murlocs fast enough, because we have a bunch more. Can't kill the Murlocs fast enough,
then melee. They spawn again, right?
Yeah. So I was actually wondering what would happen with the rusters, because some rusters might just find like, oh wait, we have way too many melee for this. We have to like either be really creative with our strategy, or what? Because fights like Morrogrim where there's just you have to kill these Murlocs. Like there's no way around it. And if you just bring too many melee, sure you can kill Morrogrim faster, but you still have to deal with the Murlocs, and that might be an actual issue if you have a bunch of melee who can't AoE.
Yeah. And it becomes even worse too, because in Morrogrim, he Watery Graves 3 people, and 24 people are eligible for Watery Grave. The one that's excluded is your main tank. So 3 out of 24 people, 1/8 of your raid gets Watery Graved every single time. And that's like what? That's like is that 16%? Something like that. 12. It's 12.5%. So there's a 12.5% chance that your paladin gets Watery Graved every single time. So you want to kill the Murlocs as fast as possible before that happens, because if he gets Watery Graved in the middle of it, it just fucks up everything.
Yeah.
So you want to like free him up ASAP. Having been that tank, I can tell you straight up, yes, please kill these things as fast as fucking possible. And yeah, well, I definitely agree. When you're talking about raid compositions, in terms of what we're looking at, we're actually we're experimenting. I don't know if you remember a long time ago when I gave you remember when I gave you the composition with a bunch of warriors in it?
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And there was a Resto Druid in it. And I told you that he specs Imp Fairy Fire, and you don't bring a Boomkin.
Are you going down that route now?
Yeah, we're probably doing that. We're probably dropping the Boomkin and adding a second Arcane Mage. Because Arcane Mages are doing insane damage. They're really good on trash. They're really good on bosses. They're only going to get better when they get 2-piece, which increases their damage by 20%. So we're probably dropping the Boomkin, because the Boomkin is 6% crit for four members of your raid and mediocre damage. And so adding another Arcane Mage has to equate to more damage than what the Boomkin plus the 6% crit he gave to the group would have equated to. And that's very, very fucking easy to do because arcane mages are being number 1/number 2 in full clears, next to Fury Warriors, and at least in our runs. So it seems pretty easy for us to make that call. So we're basically like making the resto do Imp Fairy Fire, adding a second arcane mage, adding another Fury Warrior on top of things. So it's getting to a point where we're kind of like, we're definitely moving towards like, we're figuring out the classes that are really good. And it seems like Arcane Mage, Fury Warrior are in a weird spot because they're the beneficiaries, not the benefactors. So once you play to them, they do insane amounts of damage. But you can't really stack them because they need enablers. Yeah. Like, you can't kick out more hunters for Fury Warriors because they're not going to do as much. You lower all other Fury Warriors damage because of the fact that you don't have the same number of hunter buffs, right? Or maybe he's in a group that doesn't have a feral druid, or the arcane mage doesn't have an innervate for him, right? Things like that. But we have enough druids where it's like, hey, one of the feraled off tanks gets to innervate this guy, and then the resto innervates this other one, right? So we're actually like assigning innervates to these mages so that they can do damage. So it's insane how much like you're trying to set up your raid to enable these other classes. But I don't know if it's going to reach a point where you're just like, oh, the amount of damage that an arcane mage brings is better than a warlock, or better than like the affliction warlock, or better than this guy. And you're like, yeah, we're gonna, yep. We're like, okay, yeah, you're just gonna bring this. I don't know if it's gonna reach a point where you kick warlocks for arcane mages. I don't know if that's gonna happen, right? Because they're currently doing more damage on trash and bosses, but how in need of innervate are they, right?
Yeah.
So if they get to a point where they can operate without it, then you'll probably start seeing that more and more. It's the same thing with Furies. If Furies like outperform Hunters, then you're probably going to see like Hunters get like pushed out for Fury Warriors. But those are the classes that are really competing with each other for slots now. Is how good is Arcane Mage and how good is Fury Warrior versus how good is Hunter and how good is Warlock. So
yeah, I mean,
it's interesting right now, but I think supportive classes are going to start getting the dick first. Like I said, Boomkin. Next, you're kind of like, well, do we like shamans? You're fine. You bring bloodlust. You're never going anywhere.
It's funny you said shamans, because every time my guild needs to sit someone, they're like, excluding shamans, you're not part of this. You don't get to sit.
Yep. And it's one of those things where like, I think having an arms warrior is like overall good, but is his 4% increased damage to the physical damage dealers more damage to the raid than if he had just spec'd Fury? Because maybe you end up with just a Fury warrior in that slot and have another Fury, right? So, or the dual wield kebab spec ends up being good enough on trash that you're just like, oh yeah, it's fine for him to stay this.
Yep.
So, yeah.
I mean, I think it's especially interesting for the less hardcore guilds as well, because the less hardcore guilds are the ones who right now have been bringing like 2 rogues, 3 DPS warriors, and things like that. And now you're gonna start hitting mechanics that punish you for having that
kick the rogues.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is that the melees aren't performing badly. It's just that the mechanics sometimes really don't like the melee, even if he does good DPS.
I would like to reverse that. I think you said it's like the mechanics don't like melee. I think it's the melee don't like mechanics and they don't fucking do them. Like I can tell you, our top damage dealer in like all of our SSCs is fucking our Fury Warriors, both of them, and they're fucking floor POV every time. I think one of our guys had 26 deaths, and he was like 9 ahead of the next person. And we were like, what? And we were like, wait a second. Like, if he learns to not die, he's going to do insane damage. But right now, he's just fucking floor POV all the time because he doesn't care about the mechanics. Like, I can tell you, as the Paladin tank, when I round things up, if the first thing you do is Sweeping Strikes Whirlwind, you're probably going to pull one of those mobs off of me. Maybe 2, right? So I'm like, honestly, if you're like a big pumper, I actually think you should probably look into a few items that may be underrated. things like, I think there might be some underrated items out there, like the trinket from Exalted Keepers of Time, the one that's got resilience and stamina, and then it reduces the threat of everything around you in 30-yard range, right? And it's a 2-minute cooldown. Shrouding Potion, which is from, I believe, Sporgar Reputation in crafting. People don't use this potion. It's actually pretty good. I believe it reduces your threat by 800 to everything around you. And I think the trinket does about the same. So you can actually macro those things together and get reduced threat by like almost 2k on everything around you if you pull aggro.
Oh, 2k is a significant amount.
Yeah, you can start doing that with multiple things, right? And I think there's like a cape too. I don't remember, but there's multiple threat items that you can actually macro together for trash, that if you want to pump on it, you can just be like, okay, I'm going to pop my Badge of the Swarm Guard this trash, and I'm going to use my other active trinket here too, but it's going to be the fucking reduce my threat once I pull. So you like fucking Sweeping Strikes, Whirlwind, cleave everything, fucking then use your threat reductions, right? So it's stuff like that I think like warriors should be looking into, because if they want to hit things sooner, that's what they're going to have to do. Because I wore over 900 spell power on my paladin while tanking that stuff, and I had Sanctity Aura and everything like that, and I had Sanctuary on, and there's literally no way I can produce more threat than popping wings and consecrating, and having wings in my active trinket every single time. Like I'm literally going like, do I need to bring Wrath of Cenarius and lose stats on my ring just to like make sure people get in there faster? Is Fetish good for all that? Yeah, exactly. Still, Fetish is like another example. Fetish is another good example. Any threat reduction trinket, there's multiple. I think there's like 3 or 4. So there's a lot of like really good trinkets out there that I think Melee should be looking into trying to use if they want a Sweeping Strikes Whirlwind early on packs, right? Because it's going to be a larger damage increase to swing earlier and use your rotation earlier than it would be to wait, delay your DPS, and then do it and have a better trinket on. So yeah, it's stuff like that I think people should be looking into for speed running in particular, or people who want to like giga pump. But yeah, I was wearing over 900 spell power as a prop paladin and just absolutely blasting things. And the only way like somebody wouldn't pull off of me, that was like, or I guess somebody, it would be the warrior wouldn't pull off of me on like the X or like the square, because I can't hit everything at once. I can't judge fucking everything. Is if I popped wings, but I can't have wings every single pull, and that's the problem, right? So yeah, it's going to be really interesting, and there's a lot of fucking things that people want to see too. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm actually curious to see how many rusters guilds will hit like the Morogrims and SSC and such, and then reevaluate the rusters, because they're gonna hit that muck. And like I said, it's not so much the performance on the DPS that's bad. Like our warriors and rogues and such still did good DPS on Morogrim, even though it's a very AoE friendly fight. The single target DPS was great. It's just that it doesn't matter if you do single target DPS if you get overwhelmed by 5,000 Murlocs at some point.
I wonder if there's going to be some strat where like somebody just fucking runs in circles with like it's going to be the prop paladin plus like a frost mage, and you literally just kite them in a big old fucking circle around a pillar over and over again for the entire fight, and you never actually kill any of them. It's just you and the mage, man. I'm sure there's something. I'm sure someone's
going to do something like that. Yeah. It's fascinating watching the developments, but yeah, I feel bad for the rusters with a lot of melee, because they have to. I think like it's like Reckoning Day for a lot of melee heavy rusters, where they're gonna suddenly realize like, okay, we have to optimize a little bit, or change strats.
That's the thing is, I don't know if that's entirely true, because if you're a melee heavy roster, I just think that your melee need to do their job better, and because I think melee are good. Right? Like, I think melee are actually really good. I think rogues actually do exceptional damage and are only going to get better too. And single target. I think that Fury Warriors are like top 2 DPS class still. And now it's going to become even more apparent. So I think that melee just need to fucking understand their role and not die, because they are more at risk than any other class dying, because you aren't being healed directly like a tank, and you aren't at range like all the other classes. And if you're a warrior wearing leather, yeah, that's going to be the most relevant. You can't really take hits. So yeah, also the way that threat works, right? Being in melee range means you only need 110% of the threat of the tank to pull, as opposed to 130% like range do. So when you are melee, there are all these factors pushing you to not pull aggro and not over threat. And you really need to have like your tanks play better, but also you need to understand when your tank is actually capped and doing the best that he can. Because I actually think there are limitations now to the game where before it was like the game lines up perfectly, where it's like Fury Prot will always out threat any other person if the person is playing correctly, right? If like the Fury Prot warrior is playing correctly and they don't get a parry, they don't get unlucky, right? If they don't get bad RNG. Now it's kind of like, even if the paladin gets like a tick of consecrate off or two, if you get like Wind Fury RNG and a whirlwind, you're going to pull, right? It's like, even if your paladin is wearing full fucking spell power gear, you're still going to pull. And there's nothing more he can do than sapper and grenade and alternate those every pull and things like that. So unless your tank is like playing as hard as he fucking can, you're going to pull. It's just how the game works now, right? So you have to give them that time, or you have to like prepare around that and understand and work with your tanks. So
yeah, I mean, it's
I
interesting.
Think melee have to play harder now.
Yeah. I feel like I actually agree with that. In that, either I feel guilds will have the choice of either you cut some of your melee who suck, who aren't performing, or and maybe this maybe and as well is that the melee you do have to be good. Like you can't carry Zug bad melee anymore. They actually have to perform. And it's it's one of those reasons why I've like when I consider rogue specs, like there's been a lot of talk about the hammer rogue in the past and such.
Mm-hmm.
I tell people like, look, that's a very niche thing, just because it's kind of a lot of rogues have kind of looked at it as he can't expose armor, put him on Hemo. But it's getting to a point where, look, our melee need to be good now. We can't have a melee who just says, well, I can't do this, so I'm gonna do this worst thing instead. It's like you don't get that pass anymore. Like it's hard to get that melee spot. Melee need to perform well to perform on the raid nowadays. You can't just be like a bad melee.
Yeah, this isn't new. You were talking about this when you talked about how it was like you were like mutilate on paper in Sims is worse by like 5 or 6%. And it was like, but actually, it's going to be lower than that. And if you're already playing a class that all you bring is damage and you choose to bring a suboptimal damage spec, then you're like, well, then, your raid spot is something that will be called into question eventually, because people will look at you and be like, why is this guy in the raid? He's like slowing us down. He's not contributing anything, not even his damage. So yeah, I really feel like if you are playing melee, you have to be a good melee. Whereas if you're just a warlock or hunter or a shaman, they're like, welcome aboard. Hello. You have to be an elite player. Like our warriors, we had some of the top warriors in the world in Reign, and they're the ones who are dying, right? The top Fury warriors from Classic and Nax in our full clears, they're playing with us again and they're dying, right? So it's like these are good players who are used to zug-zugging. They want to push the limits. They want to limit test, but they're dying constantly. And it's not that our tanks are bad. It's just that the pace of the game is different now, and they have to just play well. They have to try and do everything in their power to not die. So yeah. It's very difficult. And the fact that like Warrior's different now and like sweeping strikes and shit, it's a whole fucking different ball game.
Yeah. The mechanics are a lot more punishing now for people that don't play well. But speaking of the time when Warriors were the number one, Classic Fresh on PTR. Classic Fresh on PTR. So for people that don't know, what happened is that people discovered it just popped up in the clan one day that there was a new PTR server. And on that PTR server was Classic Fresh. So it was essentially a brand new Classic server, or like an old Classic server that was unlocked up to phase 2. Let me see, I can pull up the Wildhead article. It was unlocked up to phase 2 with Darmal there as well, which was fascinating. So people are speculating if Blizzard's now considering Classic Fresh, or if they're looking at making some sort of new reroll fresh Classic server where they've made the changes that came in later, like chrono boons and such, or having Darmal open from phase 1. The things like interesting changes that might change how Classic works, but maybe for the better. And we don't know what's going to happen. But Asmongold Asmongold did tweet out a list of what he would like to see, because this brings up the whole question of what would you like to see in Classic Fresh, and if they do this, what would you like to see in Classic Fresh, and what type of game would we like to see? So we can go over the list of what what Asmongold likes in particular, and we can see whether we disagree, agree, or what points we have. I know Zyrene at the start of the podcast brought up the Booba slider.
Yep. I'm a big fan of the Booba slider. Need a bulge slider too. You know, Craigasm. Yeah. I mean, character customization is always something that's been like really bare bones in WoW, right? It's just like pick your hair, pick your piercings, and all that. And then like when they even added like cosmetics and shit like that, and like transmog, it's still like very bare bones. You don't get to really choose like height, weight, things that like SWOTOR and like all. It's like fucking God. You know, maybe it's a good thing when I think about it, because I can't tell you how many games I've played where I've just been stuck on character select screen for 2 hours before I even play the game, because I'm like, damn it, my face just doesn't quite look right. And I'm like, damn, why is there a nose slider? Fucking Skyrim, dude. Like, this just reminds me of a time where somebody fucking, I think probably one of the best insults I ever saw was somebody called my friend a randomly generated Skyrim character. It's like, it looks like you, he's like, your face looks like a fucking randomly generated Skyrim character. And I was like, holy shit. You ever fucking press random on that thing? It looks so fucking bad. Yeah, it's just, I do think that character customization is something that should be more like, it says boob slider, but you know, there's a more customization options, which I think is 100% should be welcome. I don't know why it's not a thing. And it just seems like a really archaic thing to just be like, yeah, your character select screen is just like 4 things, 5 things, and everybody's character looks the same pretty much. And then transmog is, I guess, the way now that you make your characters look different instead of like allowing you to kind of have a look inside of that. Like that's one of the things that like Final Fantasy 14 does really well, is it's not just about the transmog of the gear, it's how your character looks with that gear on, the color of your skin, the tattoos, your hair, the race you are, how tall you are, how like stacked you are, how jacked you are, like that type of thing. That actually, like, you can create the whole aesthetic, right? Instead of just use their skeleton, their character model, and then build on top of it. And that's what WoW has to do. So yeah, I agree with that. I think more character customization options will always be welcome, right? I don't think it hurts anybody to add more customization.
Yeah, I mean, before we even get into that, would you play a Classic Fresh again? And do you think it's been enough time for a Classic Fresh?
Not yet.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that from coming from EverQuest and watching them do fresh servers over and over, there definitely has to be a break in between before players kind of get that nostalgia back and that, oh, I kind of want to got that itch for that fresh server now.
Yep. Honestly, for me, like if you had to ask me, when do I think is the perfect time for Classic Fresh for me? The best time is when Wrath of the Lich King is going to come out, because I quit in Wrath and I really don't have a desire to play Wrath. I'm probably going to play TBC, and then I'm either going to play Classic Fresh or I'm going to quit. I don't have a desire to play Wrath of the Lich King unless there's like really massive changes, or it just breaks off into a different direction and they kind of go WoW 2 with it. I know a lot of people really like Wrath, but Wrath for me is just not the game that I fell in love with. I really liked Vanilla. I really liked TBC. I know Wrath is like a more refined version, but for me, the introduction of Death Knights is actually what destroyed the game's PvP for me. I have really strong feelings about this, where people don't like fear in general because it like forces your movement, but things like Death Grip were the first time they introduced a mechanic that introduced forced player movement, and then they just went completely nuts with it, where they were like, here's life grip, here's like lifeline or whatever it is, here's fucking knockbacks, right? Having something where like, you know, disengage for hunters is good, right? Having something like that is fine in my opinion, but having something like Death Grip where you force player movement completely changed the way Arena plays, and that's why arenas became what they are today, where arenas are trading cooldowns, and I mean, I actually think if you ask any person who plays Arena at a high level, they'll give you the same answer. Where the difference is retail is about trading cooldowns, and classic / TBC PvP is about positioning. The positioning you have in Arena is literally like the most important part. It's the thing that really separates the high like gladiator players from the people who are mid tier, is just positioning relative to your teammate, relative to the other team. And I feel like Death Knights completely broke that balance and made it so that they went crazy with that mechanic and that type of mechanic. So I actually feel like PvP is no longer fun for me because of forced movement and the way that my positioning can be just completely null and void. And then what happened in PvE as well. So for me, I would probably play Classic Fresh then. That's when I think it would happen. I think enough time would have elapsed between playing Classic the first time, playing all of TBC, and then playing Classic Fresh, and then feeling like there's elements of TBC that I would want in Classic Fresh, and then see if they do, new content on top of that. And that would get me excited about it. I don't think I'd be excited for Wrath. So personal feeling, I know a lot of people really like Wrath though.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, that you wouldn't play Wrath. Because there's so many people that I have friends who, when TBC was starting, they said they wouldn't. They're not sure about TBC, but they'll 100% come back if they do Wrath.
Yeah, because Wrath is where a lot of people think like PvP was in its prime. Because a lot of classes got rebalanced around PvP, like rogues and stuff like that feel like they're a lot stronger in PvP. Paladins that literally were like the worst healers in all of fucking Classic. Like the healer diversity in Classic is dog shit. It's, hey, are you a priest or a druid? Poggers. Like, it's like, are you a shaman or a paladin? Like literally like priest and druid are up here, and like shaman paladin are like down at the bottom. So it boosts up the other classes. Elemental becomes more fun. Like resto, all these different like specs actually become good. I think feral druids, like people really enjoy them more, even though they're like, they can be good now. Yeah. So a lot of those classes just got better and better. And I just think like the PvP for me, I just really don't enjoy how the dynamic shifts. And in PvE, granted, I will put an asterisk next to this because this is not the way that TBC was released. Okay, this was not the way TBC was released. When I played through all of Vanilla and all of TBC and all of Wrath of the Lich King, Trial of the Grand Crusader, Nax Ramus and Trial of Grand Crusader were the first 2 times that I fell out of love with WoW. Those were the first times, because I was a really big raider. I was in like top guilds in the world. I was pushing content all the time, all those years. And then Old War was really fucking good. ICC was really fucking good. Trial of the Grand Crusader was dog shit. And rehashing Nax was even worse. Nax, one of my favorite instances of all time, but rehashing it for like less people and keeping things exactly the same for the most part it was not interesting. I know they wanted people to experience that instance, but like, how people right now are going like, oh, Grolmag Theoden and Karazhan again. Like, this isn't interesting at all. The TBC back then had Serpentine Cavern in the first phase, right? Like, we were able to raid in the first phase in this in 25-man capacity. So it's completely different. I think now is like one of those times that is like the third worst time I've ever had playing WoW, behind those 2 where I quit. So like this is up there because of the content, because I really think this is like a content drought that they should quickly address. But yeah, the Wrath was the first time that I had 2 opportunities to really fall out of love with the game and then quit. Because I just think that was the first time they dropped the ball with raiding. I think that they really dropped the ball in Wrath. Because I think all the raids up to that point, Molten Core, Blackwing Lair, AQ40, Nax Ramus, then you had Serpentine Cavern, Tempest Keep, Hyjal with Black Temple, and then Sunwell. I was like, these are all fucking great instances, and you can feel like they're actually building on their design. Every instance gets better and better and better, right? Molten Core into Blackwing Lair to AQ into Nax, like Serpentine Cavern, Tempest Keep. Then you're like, oh, here's Hyjal. Okay, then there's fucking Black Temple. Then there's Sunwell. Like all of those, each one is better than the next, right? Except for Hyjal. Fuck that thing. They tried something. Same with AQ. But it's not. It's like the penultimate. It's not the ultimate raid. And I just felt like they really dropped the ball there in terms of design. Like having your first raid be Nax, I was just like fucking snooze fest, dude. Having your penultimate raid be Trial of the Grand Crusader, and that phase lasted so fucking long. I don't even know how long that phase actually lasted, but I just remember it feeling like it was fucking forever. I'm actually gonna look this up really quickly. Wrath of the Lich King ICC patch was 3.3. Okay, so yeah. So Wrath of the Lich King ICC patch was like a fucking year before they, did pre-patch stuff. But damn, that's actually interesting. Yeah, because it was like one of the longest times that bad content had been out, and I think the Nax patch was also like really long too. Because Burning Crusade I think went by pretty quickly relative in terms of expansions. But yeah, so yeah, but I guess that's how I feel about it. I know I digress with these things about Classic Fresh. Right, like to get back onto the topic, the Classic Fresh, I definitely think I will play it over Wrath because it interests me more because it's going to be just a better version of a game I already enjoyed, right? Or hopefully,
yeah. Well, I mean, that's what this whole list is for, really. It's like, what version of Classic are we going to get? Are we going to finally see Classic Plus with changes and like a fresh server design and things?
So let's go through this list one by one and like talk about these things.
So first one is Mage boosting. What are your thoughts on Mage boosting? Do you think, because I don't know if you can take it out or if they can find a way to stop it, because people find a way to cheat the XP things a lot, regardless.
Yeah. I know he's not a designer, so like it's not his job to come up with the exact mechanics or changes, but boosting experience, like. I guess I'll put it this way: you should incentivize your players to do the quests and play in the open world and experience your game as opposed to getting boosted. Because getting boosted favors people who already have characters, and it doesn't really allow new players to come in. And so that feels really bad. Yeah. So having no mage boosting, you'd have to buff experience by a lot, which I think is a good change. And I honestly think you should change the way that group experience works. I really feel like you should reward people for grouping together and incentivize grouping, right? I know that might get abused where it's like, oh, a mage will farm all these fucking things for you in the open world while you AFK. Like, I definitely think there should be a way to like incentivize people to, if you complete a quest together or something, right? You get like a bonus experience. So I'm not sure, but I think there should be a way to incentivize people to play together. I'm not sure the exact design or mechanic behind it, but I agree that mage boosting makes you interact with the world less. And I'm somebody who got mage boosted on literally almost all my characters except for the first one, right? So,
and then it's not even because of a lack of wanting, is that no one wanted a rogue on in their mage boosting team for your first character.
True.
Spell cleave.
Very true. Yeah, the spell cleave stuff is a
problem. But I actually agree. I agree with the first point as well, because what killed, if WoW is gonna follow the EverQuest model and what killed EverQuest and such, since it's so closely designed similarly, what killed it then EverQuest was when the only way for new players to get in was to get boosted. Was for them to join a guild that offered boosting services to get you up to scratch and such. And you don't want that to become the standard. And when that becomes the standard, it makes it really harsh on new players, because you don't really play the game that gets you to play WoW. You still ideally want them to play the original WoW through one time. And then on the later times, it kind of sucks to level a new character again through all that stuff. It's not that fun. But your first experience with WoW shouldn't be boosting. It shouldn't be like what people go through the first time they level a character. And I think the XP changes is good. I think XP changes is really, really good, because I haven't seen a single MMO with this slow-paced XP that later increased XP where anyone was actually really against it or found it worse. It was always just better to increase the pace, to be a bit more modernized.
Yeah, I think there's more things they could do here too. Like, for example, you could on servers that are like Horde favored or Alliance favored, you should give the opposite faction bonus experience on new characters so that they can level up faster, like an immense amount. Like literally, like even if you're giving 3x experience, you should give these people like 5x or something, right?
Yeah.
So if you're rolling on a server that has bad alliance population, just incentivize people to roll there because you'll be 60 really fucking fast, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I don't know if he has this on this.
Re-roll it, right?
I don't know if he has this on his list, but yeah, it'd be great if they did faction balancing stuff where they.
It's like the very last point.
Oh, okay. I guess
Forced max of 55, 45 in PvP servers. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great if they did some faction balancing like that. Because private servers tried to do that, and to be fair, it didn't work that well. But it's still better than doing nothing. They can try to find solutions at least to try to keep the faction balance a little bit better.
One more thing I'd want to see is this is a mechanic that I really enjoyed in other games. I've played a ton of MMORPGs, and this is something that happened in Final Fantasy XI, was level syncing. So what happens is you press the level sync button in your party, or like you opt into level syncing, and you become the same level as the lowest level person in the party. So it changes your stats and augments them to be the same level. I believe it also took away abilities that you didn't have. So that would be like a little bit strange, but I think they have that in Retail WoW. In Retail WoW, they have something similar. They have something where it can cap your level for like instances, like when you do like, you queue for a dungeon or something, everybody's level 35 now, right? Or you see like a level 67 mob and everyone else sees like a level 70 mob. So like you hit it as if it's a 67, they hit it as if it's a 70. That causes a whole lot of other problems of, that was like the PvP scaling. Remember PvP scaling? That was fun. But yeah, I think level syncing is a big thing because I would want to be able to play with some friends, right? I want to be able to play with somebody who, is level 35 and not harm them, right?
Yeah.
Like chill with my boy instead of being like, oh, I don't have a character around that level. And when I say around that level, I mean like when you play WoW with somebody, you got to be the same fucking level. Like it's insane. I think WoW is the only game I've played where if there is more than a 2-level difference, it's like impossible to party together, right? Like a 3-level difference is massive. You don't get the same quests as this person. They're out of the quest range, right? Like every time you level, a whole new slew of quests is available to you at specific levels. So like I'm level 45, you're level 47. Like the only time we can group together is to like do anything in the open world is if we decide, oh, it's not open world, let's go to an instance. Like instances have the level range, and that's why people like opt into those, because you have to be so close in fucking level to do things. Like you ever be a fucking melee and try to like hit a scorpion 3 levels higher than you? You're fucking miserable, right? Whereas like the other dude in your party is going to be like, oh, these things are super easy. They're 1 level higher than me. Because like the 3-level difference is where glancing blows and crushing blows really come into play. So having more than a 2-level difference between you and the other person in your party is crazy. So I actually think level syncing would be a big thing. I think like making sure that quests give more experience, that you're incentivized to group together would be just a better experience overall for playing WoW, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's something that came in. That's also something they copy pasted from EverQuest. The whole the penalties for hitting mobs above your level in EverQuest was even harsher. Like you literally cannot even hit the mob like once you get within a certain level gap and such. But I mean,
side tangent. The reason that Melee are doing so well right now versus private servers is things have less armor, and a lot of private servers got glancing blows wrong. So, so Melees are doing a lot better than people expected. Anyway.
Anyway, new raids. He wants new raids as well, which I think that'd be interesting. I think no one's going to be against some new content in the tossed in there, maybe, as long as they're done well. But I mean, that's always the assumption is like hopefully they do the changes well.
Yeah, like it is not hard, in my opinion. Like, granted, I'm not a fucking game designer. Well, okay, I'm not a programmer. Game design and programming are different. Being a programmer and somebody who has to work with the systems and like actually mess with the code and everything and the engine. Yeah, I don't know the first thing about that shit. In terms of game design, it is not hard to rebalance fights, just like going to like the next point as well. Rebalance fights or introduce new ones that are interesting for Classic WoW. Classic WoW, your hardest fight is stack Okay, don't stack. Okay, stack again. Okay, make sure you're spread out. Don't die to this thing. Don't chain each other. Like that's your hardest fight. Your hardest fight is stack, don't stack, don't chain, stay a certain distance. Like that's it, right? Or it's like, oh, this thing's gonna hit this person really hard. Make sure we all heal this person. Like that's your hardest fight. You know, there's not a lot of individual responsibility, and you could very fucking easily make new raids and harder raids all by just making it that you have to put onus on certain people. So like new raids like Karazhan Crypts, I don't know about you, but I love going to the Karazhan Crypts, bro. Like the Karazhan Crypts in like right behind Kara, like getting into that area as a ghost and then rezzing. I don't know if you've ever been there. Have you?
My guild did it once. My guild did it
It's
like
really
once.
it's really big. It's really big.
Yeah.
There's a lot of areas where you're like, oh, this looks like it would be intended for like a boss fight or a boss area, and I think it's like it looks really cool. Dragon Isles, Vanilla Outland, Scarlet Crusade raid. There's a lot of things. There's like another there's like 2 instances in Stormwind that aren't used at all. There's so many places. Mount Hyjal is already completely set up. If you go and like jump over in Winter Spring, it's Hyjal is literally there. And then there's like a fucking Onyxia lair in that area that people said was like where Deathwing is supposed to be. So like there's a lot of shit that you could just add, right? There are a lot of things that are already there that all you have to do is really just introduce things to it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a lot of they already have the skeleton in place. You just got to put the muscle and you got to put the flesh on. You got to get them organs in. So I think it's already set up for these types of things, and that's why people have wanted them for so long, because it's just like it's been there. It's low hanging fruit.
What do you think about the no world buffs part though? Because that's kind of tricky.
I think you should do one of two things. I either think that you should still make people go run around the world and get boons, right? Or you can just have every raid have like a fucking, or like, I don't know what it is. It's like there should be something like Call of the Raid Leader or some shit. And then it just slams all those buffs on everybody in your raid, but it's a single use and like nobody can benefit from it again after they've benefited from it for like, 2 hours or whatever, right? So like everybody gets a single buff in the raid one time. You can use it at whatever point. Maybe you want to clear trash first and then do it, but it just gets everybody, right? I think it should just get everybody. We had ZG in our spell book. It shouldn't be that hard to give everybody fucking ZG.
Just bring back the ZG. Clickable ZG.
ZG the spell book. Let's go. Yeah. I definitely think that's something that you could do, and it makes it so that people don't have to raid log. People don't have to buy chrono boons. And then every 3 weeks, it gets upgraded to have Dark Moon Fair in it, right? I just think that you should do that. Like, I really think that world buffs and like having to organize fucking dropping an Oni head, having to kill the fucking Oni dude,
getting griefed while trying to do that.
I understand that people are like, oh, this is like a part of the game where people are like, well, I want to be a griefer. I want to be able to like dispel people. Oh, I want to be able to like stop people from killing this thing and like grief that guild and get back at them. But like this is I like how Asmon put it at the bottom right, where it's remove artificial friction in gameplay. These are just things that suck.
Yeah.
That like you don't want to have to deal with. And it's like for every like 1 or 2 good like open world PvP situations, or like situations where you're like, oh, this was like a good world buff experience, there's like 10 bad ones. And I just don't think it's worth it, right? I don't want to stay up that late to like fucking have to world buff, and literally was making my entire day and schedule around it. And then if you get unlucky, then like you can't have buffs for raid. Dude, and then that means you probably
the worst part is like, you missed the raid buff, and then you got to put an alarm like, oh, well, I got to wake up at this time to get the raid buff, and then I can go back to sleep again. It's stuff like that. Yeah. The tedium and nonsense stuff.
Collecting all of them, and then like if you miss like one raid buff, you're just like, might as well not fucking, like, there's no way you're going to parse, right? There's no way you're going to parse. There's no way. If you're missing one raid buff, oh no, right? Oh no. Like, it's not worth it. People are going to do so much more damage than you. A single raid buff made that much of a difference. Songflower, all that shit. So that stuff, I think, was a big deal. Now, the argument that Asmon makes in return is it's impossible to balance challenge. It's impossible to balance and make challenging content because it either has to be tuned for world buffs and be nearly impossible without them, or tuned for without world buffs and get rolled over with them. Which the latter is what happened, right? Things were tuned around not having world buffs and being challenging without world buffs. And then when you had world buffs, it was trivial, right?
Yeah.
Like patchwork, all these things became very trivial instead of like slow fights. It was just burn fights. So makes now, right? Literally the fucking boss dies before it does its mechanic.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can agree to some extent that world buffs are good and bad for the game. Does the good outweigh the bad? I think that the good outweighs the bad in terms of the way that I like to play the game. But but if it involves getting the world buffs and manually having to go do that, I think the bad outweighs the good, right? So if I have to go get all the world buffs, I don't think it's worth it. If I don't have to go get them all and there's a way to like get them delivered a single time or even chrono boon, then I think it's worth it. So that's how I feel about these things.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I feel like that we don't necessarily have to do the whole chrono boon and then the world buff train stuff. Like, I feel like a lot of that is things that people might have enjoyed the first time around to re-experience it and such, but I don't know if it's something people will experience the second time. Like, yeah, this is fun, guys, remember? Like, I think a lot of nostalgia is worn off, and at this point, people want to play the fun elements of the game, and I understand that there's the thinking that, look, the fun elements of the game are way more fun because you went through like all the shit in it before that. But you have to limit that amount because people aren't playing the game the same way anymore. It's not like I always tell people, look, if you want a really, really hard MMO that's very unforgiving, that takes crazy amount of hours, you guys can just go back and play EverQuest again. It's still, they have classic servers. You guys can go do that where you can't accomplish anything without a group. Literally, there's no such thing as questing for experience. You have to group for everything. If you lose your body, you go back to original EverQuest. If you lose your body and you don't find it, you lose all your gear. Literally, all your gear is on your body, so you can actually lose all your gear if you want. But there's games out there that cater to that hardcore. But there's been YouTube videos made by what was that? There's a content creator who made a good video about how the hardcore community doesn't really. There's not many of them. Like, you can't make a MMO that completely caters to hardcore anymore. Not the way people play the games anymore. So I think there's limits, and then I do think that, like, whether they do Chrono Boon or not, they just have to make the world buffing easier if they want to keep them in. Like, I think they have to take out tedium out of the game, like unfun tedium.
Give a buff vendor and let buff persist through death. GG. No, I don't think. I think buffs persisting through death takes away a lot of the stakes, and I don't like that. It's one of the things about TBC rating that I think is going to be shitty. Is that in speed runs, it just having a battle res or soul stone is going to be worth it, right? Like, people are still going to be able to just like. You might, I don't know if you can still do the thing where people log in and get a soul stone from the warlock, right? Like, let's say I'm a warlock who's going to raid with you tomorrow. You log in, might make, and I give you soul, and I give you soul stone, and then I give everybody in the raid a soul stone, right? Like, we'll literally have 25 soul stones, right? And then the first hour of raiding, if you die, you just pop back up immediately, and then you're ready to go, right? Like, I don't know if that still works, because I know that, like, it does that thing where it's like, oh, it'll remove when you engage a boss if that person isn't inside the raid. But it's literally the warlock right next to you that gave you that soul stone, but he gave it to you 12 hours ago, right? Right? It's like, ugh.
Yeah, there's definitely a balance, because like someone in chat is saying, like, you don't want the meta to be completely no consequences, where you go into the TBC thing where if you're not on a good attempt, you just wipe and then redo it because there's no consequence to doing it, and then you end up, if you're speed running or if you're going for passes or what, you just wipe 500 times until you get like the perfect iteration, and then that's your raid for the week. And I feel like that's kind of unfun. So I think they just have to avoid unfun elements. You can still, I guess the main thing is they need consequences for your death, And people, they still want to cater to like, look, people like to pump. They like to see the big numbers. They like to see the buffs and such. You just have to find that balance in between. So I don't necessarily think they need no world buffs, but they just need like that balance where it doesn't suck to get, and there's still consequences for your death.
Yeah. I agree. And like Sneaky Mick Classic is saying, yeah, there's the cringe parse meta of deliberately wiping for a good attempt in TBC wouldn't exist with world buffs. Well, it also wouldn't exist if the raid wasn't just a single boss, or two bosses. Like that stuff doesn't exist when you go to like SSC. There's too many bosses. TK, there's trash, right? People are trying to do the instance fast, not the whole like fucking boss in like 10 seconds. Like it's just because it's like an Ani or like one boss, two boss. Like that's why that happens right now. I don't know which is better because no world buffs in raid. I'll tell you one of the most fun things about playing Classic was playing Fury Prot. It's probably one of the most fun specs I've ever played in any MMORPG ever. I was actually having this conversation with one of the guys who's working on the Riot Games MMO. Is I was talking to him about like what my favorite spec.
Oh, I saw that tweet. He was asking for what people thought were the most fun spec in any MMO. I saw that tweet.
He said spec and rotation. And my favorite spec was Fury Prot, because Fury Prot was a solution to a problem that it then became like the dominant thing, and it allowed other people to play the game in a different way. If Fury Prot didn't exist, Fury Warriors wouldn't be able to play the way they do, right? You wouldn't be able to like move and do all that shit at the same time. So I actually think like that spec is my favorite spec that I've ever played in any MMORPG, and I've played so many. And when it comes to my favorite rotation, it was actually Holy Paladin in Shadowlands, because Holy Paladin is like you do damage and you're considered a melee healer, right? You're a healer that has to pay attention to melee mechanics. And I'm a person who loves playing melee characters, rogue, warrior, etc. So I like having to dodge things. I don't like having to stand and cast. So being a healer that has to Crusader Strike, that has to consecrate, judge, all these things, and like the question came up of like, did you feel like you had to DPS instead of heal sometimes, and it felt suboptimal? And I was like, no, because the way that it fed into the loop of like Crusader Striking made your Holy Shot come back faster, and judging gave like a heal to everybody who hit it. So it was like doing the damage things gave you some damage, but quickened your rotation, gave you holy power, and all of that. So like you were heavily rewarded for dealing damage in the rotation, but you weren't like an overwhelming damage character, right? Yeah. You were like, oh, if you guys are speed running or trying to go for like world first, Holy Paladins are really good because they'll like add like 1 or 2 more % to your attempt, right? Than if you had a shaman or something, right? So it's like if your healers are gonna, it's kind of like how people were smiting in fucking Classic as priests on fights where they didn't have to do damage. Now it's like if you could smite and do that tiny little bit of damage and you would do the same healing output, it's good.
Well, I mean, this kind of goes into the next couple points he makes, where it's like debuff limits and rebalancing classes and basically like potentially new classes as well. Is one of the reasons why I never play caster in vanilla WoW is because the rotation is so boring, man. Like I can't play a warlock or a mage in phase 1 vanilla and you press one button in raids. Literally your rotation is like frostbolt, and for warlocks it's like shadowbolt. There's just, you just don't do anything. There's no rotation, there's no fun.
I'm sorry. You played what class? In vanilla?
The all important rogue, of course.
I'm sorry. What type of weapon did you use?
I used a dagger. A dagger.
How many? Sorry. How often do you get to backstab?
Often enough.
Sorry, it's once every 6 seconds.
Hey, there were 2 buttons. I pressed slice and dice as well. 2 buttons. That's a 50% increase. Yeah. That's a big increase over.
That's 100. That's 100% increase. That's twice as many buttons. Oh god, 100% more, 200% the buttons. Yeah, it's once every 6 seconds. Yeah, I actually think rogues were like the lowest CPM. Backstab rogues were the lowest CPM every raid, because it's literally like casting Pyroblast. It's being like a mage who only casts Pyroblast. once every 6 seconds. Goddamn. But yeah, no, but it felt like, you had things going on in between that were significant with your white hits and stuff.
Yeah.
And then you had like these other things you had to juggle, like buff uptime. So there were, even though Rogue is a 2-button class when it's backstab, you at least feel like there's these other things you have to do, right?
Yeah.
And so your monkey brain goes, combo point, 3, re-up. And then it's like, you feel like you're doing something. So yeah, even though you're literally hitting like 2 buttons, 3 buttons, it's at least you're doing more than you would as a Frost Mage. So I get that.
But I mean, we're getting off track here.
Yeah.
What do you think about the classes though? Should they tweak things like maybe make things more exciting, rebalance them a bit?
I think so. I think that the so when looking at something like this, right? One-shotting Clothies with ambush was, I mean, like, dude, that's PvP. We're talking about PvE, Minarch, different things. But yeah, so when rebalancing classes, from a game design perspective, you have to go, why would you rebalance these classes? Because they're bad. Okay, so what's the point of rebalancing them? Ultimately, you want these classes to not get completely flamed to fuck all when they're in a raid, right? You don't want people to like blame these classes for when you're doing poorly. You want them to feel like they're bringing something to the raid, and that people can enjoy these specs without getting flamed like a backstab rogue, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's that type of thing. So people who want to play Ret don't feel like they're hamstringing their raid, right? Moonkin, etc. And so the idea is you want people to be able to enjoy the specs you've put in the game without putting their raid at a disadvantage because they've done that. So I think it's a good design goal, perfect, honestly, to bring these hybrid classes to a place where you feel like, enhancement shaman can be played, elemental shaman can be played, and feel good about it. So yeah, I think rebalancing them is a good idea.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah, I agree. Well, what are your thoughts on arena though? I think that'd be super interesting actually. If they brought some sort of arena PvP. I don't know how popular it'd be, but it might be interesting if there was arena in classic.
It would require a lot of balancing, and it would have to. This would be this undertaking at this level is a completely different game. You need to bring on like 3 times as many fucking designers and playtesters as you currently have. This is a massive undertaking. This is WoW 2 at this point, right?
Yeah.
Because pre-patch arenas, people are like one-shotting other people. Like, it's completely unbalanced.
Could you imagine rogues in arena before trinkets are introduced? Rogue domination. You just stunlock everyone to 0 because they
you don't even get to play the fucking game. You don't even get to play the game, right? Yeah, it's yeah, I don't know. It's I would rebalance some classes, redo some talent trees slightly. In classic WoW, the reason that you do these things is to honor grind. So like, his next thing where he's like no honor system, or sorry, the thing that's 2 away, no honor system / rank 14 grind. You'd have to do something about that to really make it like appropriate to not have that like in the game where have like honor and like RBGs and shit like that. So you have to find a way to like rebalance the way that people get gear from PvP, right? Is it honor in terms of like what we have right now, or what is it? Personally, I think that if you're able to find a way to balance PvP servers, like his thing where it's like force max 55-45, I actually think that if you can do that and manage to do that, then there should be like more incentive to world PvP, right? Because I think in classic WoW, the BGs are not a main attraction. They're a chore. And world PvP is where people feel way more enabled, especially with the way that engineering interacts in world PvP. Rocket helming one person, fapping, 1v4ing. Like, some of my favorite I actually think my favorite Warcraft movies from back in the day are all like classic, like rogue, like Happy Minty and shit like that, like 1v3ing, 1v4ing, and not so much anything in like BGs or like arenas, honestly. I actually think world PvP is like one of the biggest things for for classic. So yeah, I actually think that world PvP is like how you get the big win here. But in terms of like, I think moving to like the no honor system thing, that's like an interesting thing. I don't know if you want to like talk about arena and like RBGs more, but I feel like these two are tied together.
Yeah,
I
think that kind of.
I don't think you can have one without the other. So it's like,
and it's one of those things where like I don't know if people can do the tedium of those things again and again. Like the old rank 14 system, I think it's something people really came back and wanted to experience because it's infamous for how bad it is. The original honor grind, and I don't know if you can make people want to do that again and again.
Yeah,
in a fresh serve, I'm not sure. It might be too dated at that point to get people back there.
Only reason you do it is because you get BIS weapons for the entire game until like KT, right? So like the min-maxing guilds will do it again, and are required to do it, and that's just how it is. So it's almost the same as like the drums, bro. It's like it's inconvenient, but the min-maxers are still gonna fucking do it. So you got to introduce something else like tinnitus. You got to introduce something else because people are just going to do the whole brackets again, right? So you have to find a way to make this something a system people want to interact with for a long time. And ranking tinnitus, make this a system people want to interact with and is rewarding to interact with, and is not something that can be abused easily, at least.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think we're both on board on the PvP front there. It'll just be tricky, like you said, it'll just be tricky to make like sweeping PvP changes and such because they need a lot of resources. It would take a lot of work. I don't know if they want to commit that much work to a fresh classic, but if they could do it, it would be kind of cool. But I don't know if they can commit that much resources.
I mean,
to it.
I don't even think it's that hard because you think of pre-patch, right? You could grind the Grand Marshal set with honor. They introduced the honor system then, right? With like getting honor from kills and like buying gear and shit like that, right? Like that was something that they already introduced system wise. It does exist. That tech is there, and that wasn't a bad system, right? It just means that when the honor rate wasn't abysmal, it also means that like people would gear up very quickly and potentially outgear the content. And you'd be like, oh, chromatically tempered sword. Anybody want this? Nah. So you might have to do like tiers of PvP tweaking, stuff. You might have to do something like that. And make the gear like
you definitely
really
want to avoid phase 2. Was it phase 2 where we chain killed the Lance people? Was that phase 2? Yeah. Definitely want to avoid that happening again. That was not healthy for the game. Definitely not healthy for the game that every person ranking sat at a flight person waiting to kill every single person that landed. Like it's pretty toxic when your strategy is okay, well this guy's gonna land, he might be AFK, we're gonna sheep him until his debuff falls off and then we can kill him. So we're just gonna chain sheep him over and over again. That was definitely not healthy for the game.
I think that they need something that's like a carrot on a stick, but the carrot needs to be within view for the average player. Right? It can't be that thing where you're just like, look at that fucking carrot over there. And you're just somebody who has like eagle eye vision. You're a hardcore player. You can see it in the distance and you're like, oh, fuck, that looks so good. And you like start walking towards it and it's a long fucking walk. Whereas the average player will be like, nah, it's too far. I'm not going to interact with that. They're like,
and I mean, like I said, even a lot of the hardcore players aren't going to do it again the second time. Like the game in between the reward and the beginning has to be at least like decent and not complete tedium now, I feel, if we're going to do it again. What are your thoughts on the no respec cost though? Because now we're getting into quality of life changes, which I'm actually all on board quality of life changes. I think quality of life changes can be made, and sure they may impact parts of the game. Like the no respec cost will definitely cause some inflation, but I think at this stage, if you really want to deal with inflation, there's better ways to do it than to handicap the gameplay. I don't like when they handicap gameplay and put it behind this wall where like there's a lot of people that don't PvP because respecs are just annoying. They don't want to have to deal with like respec costs, even though it's really not that much gold or that much time to go farm that gold. It's just they can find other gold things, I think, and add in like free respecs or some sort of respec system that you can pay once and just be done with it.
gold sinks are like things that people really want to have in the game, so that it's like people can't have an abundance of wealth. But like I feel like there is no system that could ever exist that will stop people from hoarding gold, because time spent on the game will equate to gold. And if you introduce too many gold sinks, the average player won't be able to make enough gold or feel like they're struggling all the time because they won't be able to play them as much as anyone else. There's no way to detach gold and time from each other. Time is money, right? I cannot think of a system, maybe I'm not clever enough, that decouples those two things without feeling unfair to the person who spends more time on it, right? So I really don't think there's a solution to this. I think the people who play a lot will feel like these gold sinks don't matter, and the people who play very little will feel like these gold sinks hurt too much, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing with people who respec every week and go, oh, it's fine, right? Oh, it's fine. Like, yeah, I don't mind respecking 3 times a week. I play enough, right? And the other people are like, oh, this is so fucking inconvenient, right? Honestly, I just think that the whole idea of like, oh, there should be gold sinks and shit like that, it's like, I don't know if people understand how to introduce a gold sink that actually is good enough to affect people in a meaningful way that you think it's going to. Because people are like, oh, these people who like farm too much gold are ruining the economy. We need more gold sinks. Or I have too much gold. I need more gold sinks. It's like, bro, those are static gold sinks. They don't scale with how much gold you have. Like, you're talking about taxes and you want to tax the rich. You want to make sure that the people who are mage boosting don't have as much gold so that they can't like ruin the economy, but they put so much time in and they have so much money that
There'll just always be tycoons in the game. Yeah, like the people I know who have crazy amounts of gold, they don't care. Like you can put as many gold sinks as you want, they will still be ballers with unlimited gold, because usually there's reasons why they're so rich, and it's not to do with gold sinks. Usually they're running GDKPs, they are running gambling houses, they are playing the auction house market, or they are boosting people. Something along those lines. And you can put as many gold sinks as you want, and they're still going to be tycoons with unlimited gold, basically.
Yeah, there's an interesting concept in game design where you actually need players to interact with something that feels bad in the game. It feels really counterintuitive, but it's almost like The Incredibles, where it's like, you know, if everyone's special, nobody is. That line from The Incredibles movie. If everything is good, then nothing is. And this is why, like in the game of Hearthstone, the Ragers exist, where it's a 5-1, right? It's a 5-1, like fucking raging, like Molten Rager or something like that, right? There's a reason these cards exist. It's so that other cards look better. Like there are cards that are purposely designed to be bad and not as good as other cards of the same cost, so that other cards are better, and there are clearly bad cards. I don't like it. It seems like a weird game design, right?
Yeah.
But it's how things actually like work in your little monkey brain. Is you feel better about having the good cards now because at least you don't have the bad cards now. So it's the same reason that there's like gear that gets upgraded, right? It's the progression and getting through things to something else. So it, to some degree, somebody was saying like you should have dual specs so that you can always be PvP spec in the open world. To some degree, being PvE spec should be an opportunity cost when walking around in the open world. Like, it shouldn't be every single person you ever meet is going to have the right spec for PvP, because that's called arena, right? There should be times that people you meet in the open world are PvE spec, right? So that should be a part of the game. As strange as that sounds, there should be times where you get ganked and go, fuck, I wish I were PvP spec. There should be, right? Because then that's going to like make you feel like you have a choice. Or when I decide I'm going to go farm, but I'm going to be in territory where there's a lot of people around and I'll probably want a PvP and I respect PvP. Soon as I like kill people, fend them off, I go, thank God I'm PvP spec. That felt like a good decision. That you feel really good about having spec that. Instead of you press your button, now you have these buttons and you're ready to go and you're the right spec for this. So it seems like a strange thing from a game design perspective, but from an actual like enjoyment perspective, sure, you want to be the right spec at that time, but over the course of your entire time playing a game, those ups and downs will typically equate to you having more ups than downs, and it's a net increase in happiness, right? But dual spec, I think, is something that should be good, right?
Yeah,
that should
so
be
just to clarify for
welcome.
people, Zyron's not saying he doesn't want dual spec. More that
No,
he just doesn't want it to be like a click of the button and I'm a different spec already, and I'm anywhere in the world, and you can just change spec like that. There needs to be some sort of process to be doing it, whether like you have to buy it and you go to the trainer, or whether like it's free and you still have to go to the trainer and there's requirements, you have to be in the city, etc., etc. Yeah, they're just it just doesn't want like free instant respecs like that in anywhere in the world.
I want you to like choose to leave. I want you to like choose to leave the raid or choose to leave the town in PvP spec.
I mean, that actually happened to me the other day where I was farming in Throne in Hellfire, farming the primal fires in between while waiting for my raid, and I got ganked. And I was like, okay, well, screw these guys. I'm PvE spec. That's why they're ganking me. I went away, came back with my PvP spec later, and made them leave. Because I'm a rogue. That's what we do. If we get ganked, we go respec, we come back and make sure that you cannot farm until you leave now.
And then the other part of it too is you're like, I spent 50 gold on this respec, and I'm gonna have to spend 50 more to go back. So I'm gonna stay here longer and farm 100 more gold than I would have. Like, like legitimately, when farming and having to like, you know, because if I were just to be, you're gonna introduce too much gold into the game. Like people are talking about gold sinks. Dual spec is not enough of a gold sink, because what'll happen is gold, if you do it appropriately, dual spec will earn you more money than it will ever cost you ever. It's an upfront cost, but what will happen is every single time that you ever want to go farm something, you'll be able to farm faster than you would have previously, and then you would have been able to like move towards different goals. So it's like, hey, I want to go farm some primal fire for like a few minutes. Go get your farm spec, right?
Yeah.
Boom, and then you go. And the problem with that is, previously you would have had to farm 100 more gold because you spec to it and spec out of it. It's what would happen whenever I want to go ZG farm and get like Bloodvine, right? Spec into my spec for ZG farming, spec out of it, 100 gold. So I'd have to make 100 gold to get back to even and then farm more than that. So yeah, it's not enough of a gold sink because you do that enough times. You don't have to pay that 100 gold cost every time, and then you just start making profit immediately. So yeah.
Like I think the main thing for respecs is that I've always thought that I just want, like, it goes back to what I've always thought is that I want as many people playing the game as much as possible. And the respec thing, a lot of people just look at it and think, nah, I'm just not gonna respec, and I'm just gonna go play a game of League instead. It is too much effort. You don't want people to look at the thing and be like, this is too much effort, I'll play a different game. What about guild banks? I feel like no one's against guild banks, because like let's be real, guys. Can we just if nothing else, if you do classic French, just give us more bag slots and places to store stuff. Because for the love of God, I understand that like you want people to be limited and such, but like at least give us the option to get more slots at some point somehow.
Yeah.
Because it's a pain. I don't like, it feels bad deleting gear that you're nostalgic about and such that you want to keep because you have no more room. Right. I still have my Perdition's Blade because I have fond memories of having like literally maybe the first Perdition's Blade on the server potentially, and like going around and stabbing people with it. And I don't want to get rid of it, but at some point I probably will have to because I'm running out of bank room. Here's a thing, Zyrene. What do you think about this? Because I didn't see it anywhere on Asmongold's list. Is increasing the pace of content, but also increasing the loot.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Because it would allow people to still get the full bis. Like a lot of people like to play the game to try to reach full bis and such. But if you increase the pace too much, then it means that loot is very scarce and no one will be able to pick up the key items.
I'm not sure. Because to some degree, not everyone should be full bis. Yeah. It's the whole thing of like, back in the day, you saw like a death sting and you were like, what the fuck? So like, if they make the content like actually a lot harder, then yeah, I can see that. Right? I think that would be okay. Because I think if they make the content like substantially harder, and it actually takes time for people to clear things or get it on farm, then yeah, like the special part, the special like feeling having an item increases. So I'm not sure how much I agree with like increasing the loot. I think increasing the difficulty and making the loot scarce is probably like one of the better things you could do. So yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think more about that. My knee-jerk reaction is more loot is good, but it should be harder to get in the first place. You know?
Yeah.
So it's like I would balance it out by like every boss drops more loot, but the bosses are harder and people don't clear them.
I mean,
as quickly.
it's a more modern MMO thing where people expect to beat the encounters in every guild now.
Yeah.
Right? Because like back in the original WoW and like EverQuest days and all of those, people didn't expect to actually beat all the encounters unless you were in the top guild a lot of the times. A lot of guilds were like one phase behind sometimes in clearing progression and such. And that was considered completely normal. You could still consider it a decent guild if you were just, only like 1 or 2 bosses behind the top guild on your server.
Yeah, because like, now, like literally every fucking spam everywhere that I see for like a guild recruitment is like 3 out of 3, 11 out of 11, like 3 out of 3 for like the 25 mans and 11 out of 11 for Kara. Like it's not special. You guys kill Grohl and Mag. Like, how many months in are we? Like, it's not special, right?
Yeah.
A guild that's like 1 or 2 behind, where you're like 7 out of 11, and like number one's like 9 out of 11. That's like the good shit, right? Right. That's the stuff where you're like, damn, that's good, right? So getting a full clear on something is massive in my opinion. And it should feel good. And it should feel like it's like something where getting the transition to on farm is painful. So yeah.
I mean, that's an interesting thing.
I like that though.
I like that. I actually like that. If they're way more difficult, but they also give you more loot if you do beat it, that's actually interesting. I kind of like that. You have an accomplishment when you finally beat it.
Yeah, and more people are able to share in that accomplishment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fact that 40 people and the loot was really low. Granted, when you get to Nax, like there's so many bosses that like loot goes around very quickly. So also they changed it in Nax. Right? There was a lot more pieces of loot and a lot more bosses that were rewarding in Nax. So yeah, I think I agree.
Yeah. Okay, let's go through the list. Mount tab. This sounds very like an Asmongold thing. Mount tab, just like in retail, same with pets. I think that's fine. That's like a quality of life thing. I'm fine with that. If they want to add a mount tab.
The design of like having, because the idea is, should a mount take up an inventory slot, or should it just be something that you possess? Having it take up an inventory slot means people don't have diversity of mounts. They don't feel like they are empowered to collect multiple mounts, use multiple mounts. You basically get the one that you want and use that one, right? Instead of being able to like go between them. So why wouldn't you want people to be able to, or want to interact with your game and go mount hunting or get more mounts, right? It's like,
I think that's fine. Quality of life change. Summoning stones are kind of weird though. Where do you fall on summoning stones? Because some people, I know there's some people that really don't like them.
Summoning stones make it so you don't really have to interact with the world as much in terms of pathing. Yeah. I think for dungeons it's fine. I think for oh god, maybe is there something special about running through BRM and getting ganked the whole way?
That's the thing, is like there's a balance of tedium as well. Is the tedium really something that's, and as well as that, there's classic flight paths which are kind of super inefficient, and sometimes you wonder like, why is my griffin taking this 15-minute detour to get to this spot?
Yeah, because like if you think about it, in like retail, you queue for something, instantly get teleported to it, and you're all there ready to go, right? So there's not a lot of people like in the open world. If you're instance grinding, you don't like catch any groups there. I think I actually don't know if, I don't think I like summoning stones. But I do think that things like flight paths should probably be a little faster. Yeah.
I think I'm okay with that. Yeah, because I know like if we had summoning stones, it would kill a lot of open world like PvP, a lot of open world interactions, because people would just summon straight there. And then the only PvP would be like what we see now, which is people go and gank people at the summoning stones.
Yeah. I think that summoning stones, the reason you want a summoning stone is so everyone gets the instance faster, but it subverts and gets rid of potential PvP and interactions. So I would just say speed up the points of non-interaction, like flight paths, on the way to the instance. So I actually think that flight paths should be faster, much faster, because that's a non-interaction thing. You get on a flight path, you sit there and jerk off. Like it only takes you 30 seconds. Might as well just get there in 30 seconds anyway, instead of like 5 minutes, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, might as well just, I think flight paths should be faster.
Yeah.
Because it speeds up the part of non-interaction, reduces the overall time, and still keeps the interaction of having to fight other players or encounter other players.
He goes on to say maybe new classes. I'm not on board with the new classes though. I'm not sure if I'm there on that. It's a very hard to introduce new classes and balance them well.
Yeah, you know how I feel about Death Knights. So.
Yeah.
Death Knights.
Zyrene, could you imagine if you quit Wrath of the Lich King because of Death Knights and they introduced Death Knights into Classic Fresh?
Apparently somebody told me this, that in the original beta for Wrath of the Lich King, because what happened is you had to get a character to level 55 before you unlock Death Knight, right?
Yeah.
Because it was like one of those things where they didn't want like a new player picking up this class. It was like more an advanced class or whatever. It actually killed your character and turned them into a Death Knight. Like I remember somebody was saying in like the original beta, you had to like have a character 55 or higher, and they turned into the Death Knight, and you like lost the other character, and then they got rid of that like quickly. I was like, what the fuck? So yeah, no, I would I don't know, DKs, DHs, I don't know, shit's that's just uninteresting to me. I think the classes are fine. I think if you rebalance classes, right, like rebalancing classes like Ret, Moonkin, Prop Paladin, Enhancement, you'll see more classes than ever before anyway. So I don't think adding Death Knight and Demon Hunter is necessary at that point. Yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah, I agree. What are your thoughts on AoE looting though? Because I'm okay with that. Yeah, it's a bit tedious, and I'm okay with that. If you make just looting in general a little bit less weird and annoying to do sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. It's like
like an old system. It's an old system coming in from old MMO that we don't necessarily need anymore.
Blizzard had this hard on for things that increased your time playing the game, but didn't really do anything for you, and it was really just busy work. Because you think about it, think of Diablo 2, you had to run around and pick up all that fucking gold. And then in Diablo 3, they were like, oh yeah, if you walk over gold, you get it. Fuck it. Like, you didn't have to click the gold on the ground, like, to grab it. You're like, I pick up 12 gold, that one right next to it, 3 gold, 5 gold. You like pick up all the gold, right? Now it's just like, you just fucking go through everything. Yeah. It's, I think that's fine.
Yeah. Minigame content? Like the Darkmoon Fair, gold sources. So I guess he means like seasonal stuff, maybe?
Yeah.
With the Darkmoon Fair. I think that can be interesting. I don't know how you do it to... It have to be... You need some sort of carrot there to get people to do it. But you also don't want the carrot to feel like necessary and like had to be done, or you like miss out and your character sucks if you don't do it.
You're talking about gold sinks, right? You know, like people do this anyway, and it's like, okay, so random fucking thing. If you make fun fucking mini games, people will spend gold on them. People will sink gold into them if there's like a chance for a prize, not something that's game changing, whatever. People fucking run casinos, right? People fucking run casinos in WoW. Like, it's a big thing in Rain. A lot of people were like sitting in Stormwind and they'd be like, welcome to the casino. And they would like be competing and stuff like that. The fucking terrible odds, by the way. Shitty odds. All you have to do is run a casino where the gold doesn't go back into circulation, right?
Yeah.
The gold just slowly but surely gets sucked up by the house. So yeah, that might be a way to introduce a gold sink.
Yeah.
But people could get lucky and feel like they,
I feel like his idea behind the minigame content is a lot to do with like also kind of how like Final Fantasy has housing and things that keep players coming in and engaging with the game in a fun way with your friends that isn't the traditional PvE, PvP thing. It's just things that get you to hang around in the game and just chill with your friends.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a game within a game. Why wouldn't you want to play it,
Yeah, no, I'd be okay with that if they did it well. Yeah. Achievement system with chase meta account rewards.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what the second half means, but achievement system? Sure, I guess. I've never really cared about achievements that much, personally.
Yeah, personally, no. I don't care.
Yeah, I don't really care. If they want it, they can do it. Doesn't really bother me at all.
The people who care about it's another thing, like you said, it's another carrot to put on a stick for specific people who like that flavor of carrot.
Yeah, as long as the achievement system isn't linked to something super tedious that I feel I'm forced to do for my character.
Mm-hmm.
As long as that doesn't happen, I'm okay with an achievement system.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I don't like about achievement systems is it starts becoming a like, if you ever try to do any sort of like pug for like Sire Denathrius, people want you to link the achievement that you've killed it before, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of don't want it to become something like that where it's like
a
link your
requirement.
achievement,
Yeah.
link your achievement to prove that you've done this before. I know that seems silly. It's not like I want to lie and like get into a group. I just don't think groups should like have that bar, that hard bar. Kind of like how people say like they have a certain arena experience. I think that's fine, right, to have achievements for. But I just like don't like having people like require these things. And that's a thing where it's like, because of the achievement system tracking these things, players have now required that. That's a player created problem. So yeah, I just don't want to turn into that, but I think achievements are okay.
Yeah, I agree. Premade group finder, like in retail WoW. So I'm okay with, like, we've talked about this in TBC, where I'm okay as long as it's not automated and it doesn't instant port people as well. I'm okay with like just making it easier to like have a bulletin board of people looking for group and things. As long as it doesn't take away from my playing the game. I don't want to be able to click a button and instant like it sorts the entire group together and I don't really interact with the game.
Yeah, exactly. I want to be able to like sort through, choose, talk. Yeah. I think that's fine.
So I think we're on the same page there.
Because being a rogue means you have to interact with people to get them to join you.
Because you have to be the group leader.
And if every rogue was able to just be an instant party leader.
All right. Rare spawn events in the world that are actually difficult and rewarding. I think that's fun. Yeah, I like rare spawn events can be fun. I mean, like, I don't know if other people have experienced the Felina world boss mafia stuff. But,
I was like, what about world bosses?
Yeah. But I guess he wants like more things like that, or more events, I guess. One of the great things back in the day, the old school days of like EverQuest and such, is they had GM events where GMs would come into a zone, the sky would turn red, then like you would run around and give out items to people who did stuff like that, and people would all scramble to that zone to participate in the event.
I actually think like somebody's saying like elemental invasions, like the Nax invasion, where everybody's running around for fucking Scourge Stones. Yeah.
That might be fun.
That shit was pretty fun. I would be down for shit like that to happen.
Yeah, I remember like that was a big guild thing as well. You'd be like, hey, anyone want to go do this while it's here? And yeah, you get more participation with people. People group together. They have fun with your friends.
Yeah, I did it for a long time. Turns out it wasn't enough for all my characters. Ran out of stones like near the end. Mostly because of Alliance and no Wind Fury, so I'm using twice as many on everything. Yeah, it's whatever. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I think we both like that. Respawn inside of instance after wipe. So no graveyard running.
I kind of like the run back personally.
As long as it's not too far, I think that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, like, you make a closer graveyard, but I kind of like the run back from like a weird, like, visceral standpoint. I just don't like where like fucking what is it? Get like run back let you talk about shit. Yeah, run back lets you talk about shit, but like he's talking about respawn inside the instance. So if you already cleared a decent amount of the instance, right? You got to run back to where you were, kind of thing, and that gives you time to talk. But I just think the graveyard should be closer to the instances, typically, right? I just don't think like, because like in Final Fantasy, if you wipe to a boss, you all instantly respawn like right there, right in front of the boss again. I think there's like coils and like some things are slightly different where you start back at the beginning and have to clear it all again. I don't know. It's I just don't really like that idea of
just the instant respawn.
Yeah. Night Elf racial too. No.
Yeah, I mean,
No,
I don't mind running
I guess
back
not.
at all. I don't really
Yeah.
mind to run back at all, as long as it's
I
not
think
too tedious.
It is a time sink, but I just wouldn't want it to be like that long, right? I would.
Yeah.
I think generally closer graveyards, since you are reworking instances, closer graveyards instances, it should just be something that happens, right? It should.
Yeah. What do you think about the nerf to repair costs, though? Because I'm actually not bothered by repair costs at all. I don't really care.
Never
Like,
bothered me. Never ever bothered me.
it's never been that much. Is what, like, if even if all your gear breaks, is what, like maybe 20 gold if everything breaks. It's
Yeah. Then again, I'm like, I don't die often, right? Because like I'm a tank, so it's like if I die, everybody else is paying the same shit, and you're mostly you're mostly paying for consumes more than anything else. So
yeah. So I don't actually care about repair costs and things. I'm fine if they keep repair costs in. That's all fine. It's a gold sink, I guess, in some ways, and it's not like a bad gold sink. I never feel bad about the repair costs because it's always been what, like 8 gold or something.
yeah,
It's been pretty insignificant.
Bone Scythe said, it's a punishment for failing when you have to do a walk back as a ghost, and you try to avoid the bad feeling next time. It's not a time sink. Yeah, it will make you frustrated at other people though, because you're not always in control of it. But I do think it's I think it's a little bit of both. I think it elongates the amount of time it takes for attempts, which artificially gates how many times you can pull a boss. Like basically, I can't get 100 attempts in now. It's going to take me twice as long to come back. So now 50 attempts. So the boss is actually pulled less often, and there's less chance of killing it. So that artificially makes the encounters harder, longer, and harder to take down, right? So yeah. In a sense. So
this next point is interesting though. Improved threat awareness. So
that
he just
requires
wants
eyeballs.
he wants more threat information, I guess.
Yeah. I think threat information, retail info.
Wait, what do they have in retail though? Because I don't play much retail raiding.
I don't know either.
Like what retail info does he want?
Probably in-game threat meter, right? Because this is something that always fucking bothered me is threat is an invisible mechanic that is important to a lot of fights and very specific. For example, Patchwork. Patchwork cannot hateful strike number 1 on his threat. He will hateful strike number 2, 3, and 4, and he chooses the person who has the highest HP. So back in the day, you would have like 4 tanks and you'd go really fucking slow. And then if you were pumping, you would randomly die. And you'd be like, right. Okay. So it's like, yeah, Blizzard, no idea why Blizzard didn't have it in game. Yeah, it's invisible information that makes you have to guess, which was part of the skill back then, and also made rogues even better than they were because you could continue to pump on bosses. That's why rogues like did a lot of damage because they could just drop threat and it wasn't a problem, right? Whereas some warriors would just be like, even a mage would fucking pull sometimes. You have no idea. You can't tell if you've pushed somebody off the threat meter. So yeah, it's I agree that
just make
threat
it
awareness
default.
should be more readily available. Yes,
because like everyone installs a threat meter anyway if you're serious about the game, so just have it by default. Like you shouldn't have to rely on everyone installing an add-on. And I say this as someone who actually likes not having threat. I come from EverQuest where half the fun of the class that you're playing is knowing in your head like this is the rotation I can do based on this tank. Like added a difficulty element that's really fun, but I also understand that it's a super sweaty look at the things and most people aren't doing that.
A self-control element instead of the monkey brain. It's like with a warrior tank, do I chain lightning on pull? Not my problem. And then you just chain lightning. You're like, oh fuck. With a paladin, you can do that, right? It's just different tanks. People don't like doing that. It's like a warlock being like, guess I won't seed because we have a warrior tank. Guess I won't fucking seed. Like I don't get to play my class, push my buttons. It's like, it feels bad when you don't get to push your buttons or play the class. I get it.
Yeah, it's like that Danny DeVito meme. Someone's in the chat. So, anyways, I started blasting.
Yep.
But yeah, in old school MMOs like EverQuest, that was how you differentiated the good players from the bad. Is that they could do threat because there's no threat meter. There's literally not one in the game at all. But yeah, no, I agree. More threat awareness. I'm fine with that.
Yep.
Higher ceiling for professions. That's actually interesting. If they expanded the profession system.
Yeah, they'd have to some degree if they wanted to introduce new things.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be fine with that if they want to add more stuff to it. Sure, why not?
Yeah, this is essentially a new game at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're gonna go that far, yeah. Racials. That's interesting though.
Rebalancing racials.
Give me back old World of the Forsaken, original World of the Forsaken. Let's go. Where I'm just completely immune to everything.
So there was a TBC private server where on character creation, you actually could select what racial you wanted based on if that was available for your class. So like if I were a shaman, I would only have Tauren, Orc, Troll, and Draenei available to me, right? Couldn't be like, oh, I want to have sword spec, right? So on character creation, you could select what racial you wanted for your character. And actually, a lot of people in that private server would purposely select Draenei so that they always had a group. You always had a raid spot. If you selected Draenei as your racial, you always had a raid spot. So you're like, oh, I'm a Draenei Rep Paladin. It's like, welcome aboard. Like, let you add 1% hit to your entire group, right? Yeah. I'm a Draenei Warrior. Like, oh, 1% hit. So people who had selected the 1% hit, same with like hunters and things like that. When people were optimizing things like that, you'd want somebody who had selected the group buff for raiding as opposed to the person who selected the Zug Orc me do more damage buff, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. I don't know if that's really a way to do it because it means that players who aren't min-maxers
you'll get left out.
Will be punished. Yeah. You'll be like, why the fuck are you a fucking blood elf?
You'd be basically
hunter?
Mutilate rogue right now. You'd be like, yeah.
Be like, just mutilate rogue. You'd be blood elf hunter. You'd be blood elf hunter. You literally don't see any of them, right? So, and if you do, you're just like, really?
I guess you really like PvP, maybe. Or something.
But this does mean you could select the blood elf hunter and have orc racials.
That's true.
This also, I believe the person who was talking to me about this server said that Alliance actually dominated it. More people played Alliance than Horde on that server because you could select what racial you wanted. So a lot of people played like human or night elf and took the racial for the other for the optimized class or optimized race. So I thought that was actually really interesting. Draenei with War Stomp. You could be a night elf with War Stomp.
No, that'd be super interesting actually. But yeah, it's tricky. We're balancing the racials and such. But again, we're getting into the realm of like this is WoW 2 now, basically, like with all these changes.
I believe as well. Yeah. So I was like, I don't know, that like causes problems with like if I selected the wrong thing. And he was like, actually, so you could select your racial at the start and you could change your racial at max level one time. Ooh. So you could actually change what your racial was later in the game if you felt like you picked the wrong one. So
that's fascinating. Yeah.
And I actually think that's a really good solution to faction differences and rebalancing factions. Because now like it's kind of it's homogenized. You get to have a choice, and there's more agency for the player and more decisions there. Customization of your character, without being limited to the races and the factions.
Like someone in chat is saying that you start picking based on looks and such instead of just selecting the faction purely for the racial.
Yeah, I mean this is the same solution, except racials are still a thing in the game, right? Yeah. So it's interesting.
Yeah. No, I think that'd be an interesting one. I'm not opposed to that one.
Yeah. It does mean that once you it does mean that if you did something like you were like, there's too many fucking orcs, we have to nerf the orc racial, you'd probably have to give all people who had an orc racial or you'd probably have to give everybody another faction or a race change. You'd have to give them like a racial change point, kind of like how they refunded talents every time they touched any talent tree back in the day. Yeah. Hey, do something like that.
Yeah. No, I'm fine with that. Yeah. More powerful night and day system and weather. I mean, that's just an interesting addition. That's never really. I've never even thought about that before. more powerful night and day system and weather. I mean, that's fine if they do it interestingly, I guess. I'm trying to think what he actually means though, like what that would do. Like, I guess you could have different. Well, I guess it could. My experience with night and day systems and things is in like in EverQuest, certain mobs only spawn at certain times, and then like literally certain items can only be picked up if it's like 8 p.m. game time and things like that. It made it interesting.
Raining.
Yeah, it made it interesting, but I don't know how well that translates into like a modern game, because some people found that a bit tedious in that they had to like wait for a certain time and they had to set alarms and things like that.
If it influences things, right? Like,
Yeah.
if it has influence on the game, I don't really like it, you know? Maybe, but it always feels a little strange where you're just like, it's like fucking, you ever play fucking Legend of Zelda on Switch, Breath of the Wild?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, when it's raining, you slip all the fucking time.
Yeah.
I was just like, I gotta fucking wait for it to stop raining.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the problem. If they make the weather more powerful in your character as well, is what happened in EverQuest is they actually gave a spell to certain classes where you could change the weather as well. Like druids could change the weather, which was an interesting element, but it meant that you always wanted to bring like a druid or something to just get rid of this stupid weather, because this is a really annoying element in the game.
Yeah, I'm not sure. This seems like a really really low priority. You know about MVP in terms of like project end to end
minimum product.
Yeah, minimum viable product. Yeah. When it comes to something like classic WoW Fresh, the minimum viable product is the classic WoW, but with some changes. And this is like not a really big one, right?
It's down to
like for people who don't know, MVP in like business is minimum viable product, and in terms of like shipping things, it means if I was like, hey, I want to make a Snowy takeout website, right? Like it's like, oh, you're running a delivery service. What do I need on that to be literally the minimum viable product? It's like, you need a menu. It's like, okay, I probably need to show items. Do I need pictures? Nope. Do I need a description? Nope. Probably just need the name of the item and the cost, and then a checkout. Like that's minimum viable product to get the website up. From there, everything else becomes what you actually build upon. So shipping a minimal viable product is important, and then understanding what the higher priority items are. So that's something that's like not even close to minimum viable product, and it's not even like within like it's not the fucking picture or anything like that. It's like having music on the website.
It's like musical. It's just like the people that start up a business and they're focusing on the font of their business card instead of like the actual product.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then you like, it's like, oh, let me go to this Mexican takeout website, and then you fucking and when music starts playing, you're like, okay, that's
Cartman starts like dancing across the screen from South Park.
You're just like, okay, this is a little bit okay. Like weathering effects, it'll be like, it'd be nice for some people and fun, and then other people you just be like, okay, is there a way to remove this in the game? Can I turn off weather effects? I can't see an Ungoro. Like be that all over again.
He wants new hard dungeons like the Tesh fight. I mean, I feel that's fine. That'd be interesting if they have new, but I mean, that'd just
people literally bring 2 healers for that sometimes.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I think that'd be fun. That'd be kind of lumped in there with like new raid encounters and things as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't talk too much about the harder raid encounters on older content and more mechanics. Like, I think one of the big solutions to that is just putting more individual responsibility on people. It's the same thing as like Mag Theridon clicking cubes. In classic WoW, the only people who really matter are like the tank. So and that's about it. Like, it's like the tank is the main character in classic WoW. Everybody else is like a supporting character. You keep them healed. You make sure that you have like decurses and all that stuff. The individual responsibility is not very high. They tried to do that with like Baron Bomb and stuff like that, right? Where it's like, get out of the fucking raid, you dumbass. Like, get out of your pork chop sandwiches and make them get, oh my God, he blew up. Oh, you dumbass. Like, increasing individual responsibility will increase the number of wipes, will make it so that people, like back in the day, one of the reasons that they couldn't really increase individual responsibility was because people had shitty computers and internet, right? Like Thaddeus back in the day was a shit show. Like, each person had to go to a specific spot based on their own charge. And it was like, I can't do that. Like, people just fucking dying left and right. And if they die, it affects your percentage damage buff, which meant the boss died too slow, right? So it was like, that those were things that you couldn't do back then, and now they can retune the game around that. So I would introduce a lot more individual responsibility and mechanics that way.
It's interesting that you say individual responsibility as well, because it's something we were talking about when you went away for a second earlier. As I was saying that sometimes the encounter doesn't necessarily have to be harder. It just has to be more engaging. I just need to feel like I'm contributing to the fight somehow. Sometimes beyond just like being a DPS bot and I just sit there and I press like one button. Like I just like feeling like I'm contributing to the raid versus just like not really having much to do, and then it gets repetitive and boring and such. Without getting to that retail level though, because you gotta avoid the retail. I think that you go too far with retail sometimes, where like you have lasers coming across the screen and you need 5,000 add-ons to tell you what the trajectory of the laser so that you can avoid it. I think that takes it a step too far. But I do like it when I have more things to do in the raid and like fun things to do that actually affect the encounter.
I like responsibility. That's why I tank. That's why I roll multiple tanks, because I like playing a game where people have to rely on me. Because if I fuck up, I feel like there's ways I improve and that I can be like, okay, I'm never going to let that happen again. Right. Yeah. And I have more agency and control. Whereas, if somebody else is tanking, I just feel like, like, eventually I'll get to the point where I'm like, I'm just gonna fucking tank. Let me just get my character and like that type of thing. It's kind of like I like that agency and I like that responsibility, and having that spread out more means like it gets to a point where you want to like help people get better instead of flame them because everybody has to get fucking like better together kind of thing. It's like at least from my experience.
Next one, no combat add-ons. This is I don't know what does he mean by no combat add-ons?
I don't fucking know. Probably no DBM and shit like that. No timers. Maybe no timers. No weak auras.
I don't know how well that would do in a modern raiding environment to take all that away. I feel like people have them now, and then taking them away may be too much. You completely take them all out. It's one of those things where it's like interesting in idea, but once people are used to that, I don't know if you can go back anymore to like completely no add-on level.
Well, I personally think like back in the day, because like the way things work now is like DBM fishes a bunch of shit, and when Sylvanas comes out, there's already DBM timers, right? And the mechanics are all written down for you in like the description for the boss in retail. And there's already timers for everything, right? It's like, I feel like there needs to be a grace period or like a week where going into an instance, like DBM doesn't have the timers. They don't have everything. They don't know what the timer is for these different things, right? So I feel like, because that was how it was back in the day. You're doing like progression on Chromagus and like nobody's fucking...
no one knows what's going on, yeah. Exactly. I mean, that's one of the biggest magical parts about like being in that like world first guild and such, and is testing out strategies and learning things, and it's one of the most fun parts of the game. But that doesn't exist at all in really classic world, because everyone knows what's coming, everyone knows the mechanics. Yeah, it's all set in stone.
And Oracle says timer's not accurate in retail the first few weeks. Yeah, it's that, but also like knowing what the mechanics are too is just one of the things where
I mean, on a bigger scale, I think outside of just no combat add-ons, I think they just it would be nice if they modernize the WoW UI in general for like classic. Like there's a lot of stuff. I know there's a lot of default or close to default UI users out there who just like to do like the basic
hell yeah
black borders around your icons and things like that. But and there's a lot of people who actually like the nicer UI, but they don't want to deal with the tedium of setting it up and then getting used to it and all that stuff. I think if
then having it reset at some point.
then it resets when the patch breaks it and they have to figure it out. If they just made the default UI more modern and like nice and not suck, then I think most people will be perfectly okay with that. They wouldn't have to install 5,000 add-ons. Like, people know me a lot for my UI because my UI is crazy like modernized and customized. But I also understand that most people don't want to put in that effort to getting used to something like that.
Yeah. I think that's not a bad idea, but in terms of no combat add-ons, I don't think that's
I don't know if I can
possible.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, it's like people in chat are saying people will find a workaround. You take it out, people will find a workaround. Like even if it's just out of game add-on doing something for them, like in counting down and such. People will find ways.
Wasn't there like some damage me like Final Fantasy 14 had like no add-ons, and then it was like there's like a damage meter, but the damage meter was like banned or some shit. I don't think you could like stream it or something. I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I don't know. There was something where like you couldn't like stream the damage meter, right? At first, it was, but it wasn't there at the beginning. It's an outside of game app. Yeah. So yeah. There was something where like it was they didn't want you to like fuck with that stuff. So yeah.
Okay. Next one. Faster battle reses. What does he mean by that? Like, as in, like, in-game, like, druid battle reses, or?
Yeah, he means, like, getting people back in action faster. Linking meters is illegal in Final Fantasy 14.
Really? That's actually interesting.
Yeah, there's they like, crack down on that. It's kind of like, you know, how, what is it, fucking, it's illegal to have, like, iMorph. Things like that.
Yeah. But okay, so then I can kind of understand where Asmongold's coming from. He's just trying to avoid doing the min-max calculation thing. Yeah. He doesn't want that to happen. I think it's probably his thinking behind that. He wants it like Final Fantasy, where it's to an extent I agree. It can be fun if you're not like if you don't have a bunch of people trying to pad the meters constantly and things like that. I can understand that, but I just don't know if you can completely get rid of it if people are determined enough.
Here's the thing is, I don't want WoW to be Final Fantasy, right? And I think damage meters and things like that are an integral part of WoW and why I play it, right? And if I wanted to not have to worry about those things and have fun in a different manner and not care about it, and I don't have fun by like pumping or improve my DPS, I go play Final Fantasy, right? I don't want WoW to become Final Fantasy. There are parts that work for it and there are parts that work for WoW, and I feel like that's one of the parts that works for WoW. Even if it does alienate part of the audience, right? Final Fantasy alienates part of their audience by not allowing you to link damage meter, right? Yeah. So I think it's fine to have a separate audience you appeal to. I don't think that's one that WoW should appeal to. I think it's the min-max portion of it is one of the reasons people play the game.
True. Well,
right?
it's like
don't play
the thing is you don't want to compete with Final Fantasy at Final Fantasy's strength. I think that's the wrong way to go about it. You don't want to. Like, if Final Fantasy is good at something, I don't think you want to go and be like, okay, we need to be more like Final Fantasy and compete with them there. I think you need to find like your own strength and what makes WoW unique to WoW. But yeah, I'm not sure about the faster battle res. It's kind of like
there should be punishing things to the game. Yeah. I don't really like that.
Yeah, I'm not on board there either. Yeah. Because like you need like, I understand taking a lot of the tedium out of Classic. Like the general point here has all the way at the bottom is remove artificial friction. But I think this is like, in that case, that's actually good friction to have like some penalties.
Part of the design. Yep. If things aren't punishing when I die, I'm just gonna do it anyway and then have you res me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna run in there, sweeping strikes, whirlwind, and get battle resed.
Okay, next one is more flight paths. I think that's fine. Yeah, more flight paths and increase the speed of the flight paths so they don't take like 5 years. I think everyone's on board with that one.
100%.
Yeah. Maybe hunter focus. Wait, what does he mean by hunter focus?
The mechanic instead of mana.
Oh, okay.
Using focus instead of mana, which is I think a wrath or kata change.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be okay with that. I don't know how hunters feel about that one though.
It's basically energy.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So Fear Blaze is in here. It's just that they'd have to design an entire system then, right, around it, and it'd just be super complicated. I don't know if they want to do that. I don't know if they necessarily want to do that. Yeah. Consumable revamp, probably like TBC. So just no consumables.
This is to prevent people from coming in with chocolates and like giga buff slots. This would allow you to remove buff cap, while also like, because like I'll tell you, buff cap is definitely something that was like I definitely need as a tank. Outside things, I'm canceling your fucking rejuice, regrowth, renews. You can't fucking hot me. Shut the fuck up. I don't give a shit. You can't do that stuff. I just cancel it. So buff cap was kind of toxic, and I think that removing buff cap and then condensing elixirs and things like that, probably a good idea.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Like, and speaking as someone who is sweaty enough to guys, I literally went to the point in Blackwing Lair when I was at the peak of my passing pursuits, where I would go get the stupid rat that you could farm in the Barrens.
The dig rat.
The dig rat.
Yeah.
Is an NPC that you could farm. He would drop like 1% chance to drop a rat NPC. And then before Veil started, you drop the rat NPC next to you, get combo points on that rat NPC, vanish, but have your mage friend like poly or get that in combat so it doesn't reset. Open again so that you have 4 combo points. So you start Veil with 4 combo points, slice and dice instead, just to gain a little bit more DPS. So I understand the consumable stacking, and I'm okay with them. I'm okay with them taking that out, because that got a bit tedious, and I understand that's part of the game where it's like it got into the tedious part where it's if you got to protect players from min maxing sometimes, because if you allow them to min max that
Protect
level,
them from themselves.
yeah, they're gonna ruin the game for themselves if they get to that level. Especially if the casual players are still playing. You don't want the casual players to feel completely isolated. It's kind of like the problem. So it was fine if the sweaty players like me were doing it, but then when the casual players looking in like, I can't go farm dig rats in the Barrens for this.
Yeah,
you don't want them to feel excluded.
These are things that, by a design perspective, are fine, but players create problems out of them. It's the same shit as world buffs, where it's like people are like, oh well, you don't have to go get a dig rat if you don't want to, says the guy with the dig rat. And it's the same thing as like, well, you don't have to get world buffs if you don't want to, but I want to get world buffs. Right. But then like every player who like is like, oh, I don't really want to get world buffs. They just get like fucking bullied, picked on, low parse, blue fucking parser, shit like that. Whereas if dig rat became like the meta for people even in the mid tier, it would have created a problem. Right. Yeah. So I think that's a problem that I think, clever things should be rewarded for sure. But I definitely think that if they start becoming too time consuming for the average player or out of reach, things like that.
Yeah, like Feel like saying in the chat where he's like the other strategies, you keep one technician alive and then you slice and dice off that. I think that's fine because it's not tedious and like crazy annoying to do. If you want to do that, it's like another strategy you can do. It's not the same as sending, all your guildies out there to farm dig rats in the Barrens. So I think that's fine. Yeah, you just want to keep the tedium down, I think. Instant mail. I think that's perfectly fine. Yeah, sure.
Hell yeah.
Instant mail, bring it. I don't think anyone's against that. Remove spell batching completely.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's better to balance new classes around that anyway.
I guess that's what we have in TBC anyway. So
keep seal twisting.
I think that's fine. But
the rep boys.
I think that's fine. Although I'd still like to be able to vanish stuff because it's kind of fun. I like being able to vanish stuff, but
you want to balance rep with remove batching. I mean, yeah, you just fucking introduce seal twisting. It's fine. Seal twisting was artificially played towards or intentionally played towards in TBC. So,
okay, next one is other massive quest lines like the AQ gate quests. I'm actually okay with that, but as long as you don't make it like super tedious and required for like the casual players to have to do, I think. Like,
yeah, it's probably a thing where like a select person, like, we're talking about, your GM or something like that, and you guys have to round up people to go in different places in the world. That's probably fine. If you can get the execution on that correct, and the quest line correct, then yeah. And also it has to have a sense of like urgency or wanting to do it. Because I can tell you, doing the Scepter quest after the gates were opened, fucking nobody wanted to help you with that shit, dude. Nobody was going to help you with that fucking shit. No, it was like, even if you had the rep and you were like, I need to go farm green dragons you're like, no, that shit ain't going to happen, dude. There's only 6 of them that spawn here. Like, God, I actually did that for days and didn't get one of them, right?
Yeah, I know a guy that did all of them except the green dragons and couldn't get it, and then he gave up and quit the game.
Yep. The Nightmare Engulfed Objects, man. There was it's the one in Ashenvale where there's only like 4 packs or some stupid shit.
Yeah, that one is really rough. But yeah, I mean, I like the massive quest lines and things. One of my favorite things back in the day, when I played EverQuest a lot, was you would at the start of every expansion there was like a massive quest line. It wasn't mandatory, but if you did it, you got like a kind of like a cool item that was kind of equal to raid gear. So it wasn't better than raid gear, but it was equal. And like all our sweaty players would get together in groups and just run that, and we would have content for like 2-3 weeks of super sweaty gameplay of doing this crazy long quest line. And it's really fun, and it really contributed to us grouping together and playing together and such. So I'd be all for that, as long as it didn't make the casual player feel like it was mandatory, I think. Yeah. Jumping puzzles?
I mean, jump puzzles are fine.
I think this goes into that. What was the category he said? Minigame content. I think this goes into the minigame content category earlier.
Yeah, because there's things like you can like get the Hyjal and things like that. Asmon just likes jumping puzzles. I mean, jump puzzles are not bad. I think Star Wars: The Old Republic had like a really good fucking jump puzzle that like started in the main areas, the main like flagship spaceship that everybody like ran around in like one of the museums or something. There was like a thing you could hit, and then it like opened up a door behind one of the statues, and then you'd go in there, and it felt like you just entered like a whole different place. You were like, what the fuck? So it was actually cool. There was a lot of things that I thought were super cool. But yeah, it's like a hook shot thingy or something. I don't fucking remember. But
yeah, I don't think anyone's really against jumping puzzles, as long as they're not like, as long as like, again, it keeps going back to like, as long as it's not like a compulsory element of the game that like, oh, you got to do this jumping puzzle or you don't get your full speed mount or something like that, then
yeah, exactly.
You don't want to force people to do that stuff. Armory, I think, is big though. I miss the armory. I miss the original armory that we used to have. Being able to look up your characters and such. I really want armory back. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, I agree. I think armory is good. I think it's just accessible information offline. So
so he goes new zones. I think that kind of goes into like the new raids and everything. So that's kind of like we already talked about.
Hyjal, things like that. Yeah. Voice acting for more quests.
I mean, it'd be nice, I guess. I think this again falls into like, it's not a super high thing that has to happen. It'd be like a nice thing, but I don't know if it's something that is
this is a lot
impactful.
from a design perspective. This is a lot of money for very little gain. The times that you should do this are very few, and it's like Star Wars: The Old Republic. Literally everything in that game is voice acted. That was its big claim to fame, was every single line in this fucking game is voice acted. That was the big thing, is why it took so long to release, is everything is voice acted. Every dialogue option, because they had like, good and evil like dialogue options, where you could like gain like dark side points or light side. And so everything was voice acted. Took a lot of time, and then you just press escape through the entire thing anyway. So it's only going to affect a small amount of the player base to care about it. As somebody who like enjoys voice acting, I even think that this is like not very helpful in terms of the immersion. I think the only time it would be effective is kind of where retail does it every now and then, where it's like a turtle has reached the water.
But by the way, have you noticed how annoying the cars and horses are with the neighing sound? Yeah, I say that every week, every time I do cars, and man, I just want it drowned out in fucking seed spam, dude. It's so annoying that the horses, man. Jesus Christ.
I'm mixed on this. Very low priority for me for my enjoyment of the classic WoW Fresh.
Yeah, the voice stuff. It's just like, I mean, if they can do it, sure. If not, it doesn't bother me.
Yep.
Yeah, and then we already talked about the PvP faction like balancing and such. But generally,
because you don't want to lock people from playing with their friends.
Yeah, it's very tricky to do. But I mean, generally, I think what everyone agrees on is that you can make WoW Classic, but just take a lot of the tedium out, like the old school gameplay elements that just don't really work in a modern style, and then you just can't, like, I was talking to the chat earlier when you were going about how Korean MMOs don't do well in Western countries because the player base just doesn't grind in that same fashion. So it's very you can't have that same sort of grinding mindset anymore in a lot of games. People just don't choose not to play it instead. If it's too grindy, too tedious. Yeah, I mean we have other topics, but man, we've gone long today. When's your raid and stuff?
I don't have a raid today.
Oh, you don't have a raid today? I mean, we can cover some stuff quickly. How important, time sensitive is this lightning capacitor tech?
It's just a tiny thing.
It's tiny.
Like,
it's just, yeah.
Yeah, it's super small. Like, it's. I'm gonna show it in like a few seconds where it's like people like lightning capacitors is better than people think it is.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, we must as well cover it while we're here, and we can save the other topics for next week, and it's fine. So what's the deal with lightning capacitors, Irene?
So basically, lightning capacitor says on it, right? It says you gain an electrical charge each time you cause a damaging spell critical strike. When you reach 3 electrical charges, they will release, firing a lightning bolt for up to 806 damage. Electrical charges cannot be gained more often than once every 2.5 seconds. That last part actually is not true, because the way that it works, I'm going to use rank 1 lightning bolt, right? And if I spam rank 1 lightning bolt, which has a 1 second cast time for me, and you'll see me crit it probably back to back at some point, right? And you'll see my charges. 1 crit. We'll wait. Eventually.
And this is why you
1 crit.
There you go.
2 crit there. See, I immediately crit twice, and I got the lightning capacitor. I crit back to back, 1 second casts, and then I got the lightning capacitor immediately. Right? It's because I've only crit 1 time, 2, 3, and then it goes off. The way it works is when you crit something, you'll get a stack, right? So I got 2 there, right? And it went off of like 1 second cast. So the way that it works is what you can crit as many times as you want in as little time as possible up until you get 3. After it procs, it goes on a 2.5 second cooldown. So if I chain lightning 3 things with elemental mastery on, it'll instantly go off. And then it'll be on 2.5 second cooldown. If I Seed of Corruption and it blows up and crits 3 things, it instantly goes off, and then there's 2.5 seconds before it can go off again. And so lightning capacitor does not have a 7.5 second delay between charges. It only has a 2.5 second delay between activations.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's actually a lot better than people think it is. But the problem here is it's going to compete with other trinkets you use in AoE situations. So for example, like, is this better for an arcane mage to use when he's spamming arcane explosion on like fucking 20 mobs, right? Is it better for him to hit one of them for like 800? Probably not, right? So he might be better off using a spell power trinket. That'll maybe give him more, but it's essentially going to equate to an extra like 250 DPS, right?
Yeah.
If you can crit on an AoE spell over and over again. So it's actually a pretty large and significant DPS increase, but it competes with other things, right? Quag's Eye, Mind Quickening Gem, things like that. But it's not a bad filler for when your other things are on cooldown, and it might be better than people think it is. And I'll have to do more testing. But people are also saying that if I'm using a Force Reflective Disc, the Engineering Shield, that can crit and then set this off. So there's potential for warriors and maybe paladins to use something like a Force Reflective Disc and get more threat on like a single target. I don't know if it's going to work. I'm going to try it out, maybe on some fucking Murlocs on PTR. But you lose like 2.5k armor to do this, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's basically lightning capacitor stuff. It may be relevant for other classes. I think it's good to pick up on almost any caster. So
yeah, I know our Mage is looking at picking up now one as well to play around with it.
It's definitely good for arcane mages and elemental shamans. The question is, how good is it for warlocks when they're seed spamming, and how good is it for boomkins? Right? Yeah. Could you ask Irene if the lightning capacitor works on poison proc? He seems nerdy enough to know. Yeah, I would assume that the lightning capacitor does work on it, but that is also coming from the Ellie shaman. It is it's up to like a 200 damage bonus on the thing. So yeah. It's
I
Yeah,
mean, and
I
you
didn't know you could read
crit.
chat. Yeah,
You have to
I
crit.
I can read chat. Hawk Element, you motherfucker. He said he seems nerdy enough to know. Yeah, no. Well, actually, uh, yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, well, the main
Oh
problem is
man,
that it needs to crit, and rogue spell crit chance is very, very low. Wait, can we even crit in TBC without? Because I know we used to use the buff from Dao Mal, and that would enable critting. But do we have anything that enables poison critting now?
I don't know. I don't think so.
If we do, it's very low. So
Yeah,
not worth.
yeah.
Unfortunately, we will not be seeing rogue lightning capacitor tech.
Yeah, then my friend wants to do rogue lightning capacitor. He's like, wait, put me in the caster group.
I mean, Zyrene has been through a lot. He when I first watched Zyrene way back in the day, in the earlier WoW times, he used to raid with pug raids where he would bring hunters who are arcane spec and other things. Back before he decided to save his sanity and not run 5,000 pugs with arcane hunters.
You're talking about the legendary SP hunter.
Yep.
The spell power hunter. Yeah. This was a guy who was actually the GM of my other guild. He was bored of the game and wanted to do a niche spec, and he went spell power hunter. Serpent Sting does not scale very well. Arcane Shot does not scale very well. The best thing he would do is he would use the BWL trinket, the one that makes your Arcane Shot explode, and he would like out damage like a mage on like an AoE pack like once because he would like detonate it, right? So he would have that detonate and blow up. So that was the that he also got an Eltharian's Tear very early from a pug. So he liked to wear a lot of. He would also use like the fucking the like axe with life stealing on it, or the life steal axe from like Hakar, because that scaled 1-to-1 with spell power. He like spam different things like with like God. It was like he would Serpent Sting, Arcane Shot, run into melee range, spam Wing Clip, try to proc shit, and then when Arcane Shot's back up, jump back, Arcane Shot, refresh Serpent Sting, come back in. It was just like, bro, like he's doing all this for fucking mediocre damage. So bad. It was bad. But yeah, I've seen a lot of shit.
Yeah, the good old days before when Zyrene used to run. Like, how many raids did you do back then? That was. Well, I mean, you still do the same raids, but you don't raid lead them anymore, do you?
Yeah, I took a step back from raid leading.
Yeah, because you were like raiding like 3 raids or something back then when I was watching.
Yeah, yep. I raid led 3. Yeah, 3, and then I would do 4 with my paladin sometimes. Eventually, by the end. But yeah, it was like it just kept evolving, and now I've like taken a step back from leadership and anything that involves shit like that. I ain't touching that, bro. I don't fuck with that shit anymore. Leadership is sacrifice, dude, and sacrifice is not rewarding.
Well, I mean, the funniest thing was you were doing it during Blackwing Lair when people were doing the fastest runs, because Blackwing Lair is such a fast instance, and I would tune in and you'd be like, hour 2 of Blackwing Lair here with my pug.
Oh God. Apparently there was a guy, I don't know if you ever saw this one. His name was O-Tank. The legendary O-Tank was a dude who it was on Veilstraz. I like told him to walk to the other side. I was like, oh, O-Tank, you're on the wrong side, because he's like one of the off tanks. So if I die, it's gonna face that way. So he's on the side with all the casters. I'm like, O-Tank, run to the other side. And then he like runs around the front of the boss through me to the other melees, and gets a chain cleave that just like jumps to like 3 people, 2 people die, and I'm like, oh, take no, the other fucking way. And then he runs back to where he was. I'm like, no, through the boss. Apparently he's now famous in Brazil for that. So he's a Brazilian guy, and like people whisper me about him in game now. Even to this day, somebody was like, do you know O-Tank? So apparently he's very famous in Brazil for that. Apparently that clip did some rounds, at least in his guild. So, oh God,
yeah, for good times in the back. But you weren't even streaming that much back then. You would just like randomly, you would randomly tune in Like I would randomly see like a wild Zareen stream pop up out of nowhere.
Yeah, now I'm on all the time.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
I think we covered a lot. We can save the last few topics. They're kind of like filler topics that I can throw in there any week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dang. It's a
So
long
it's been
episode. We had
it's a
some good
long
talk- good shit in
episode.
there.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
we
a
had
lot
to
of
go
stuff.
through Asmongold. This is how Asmongold gets the content, man. He releases these lists that take like 1 hour, 2 hours to go through.
Yeah, well, like here's the cycle, all right? Here's the cycle. Once you're big enough, you make opinions, and then people will react to your opinions, and then you get to react to their reactions. So what we do, Snow, is we should watch Asmongold clips on this, react the Asmongold clip for freak fucking content, and not actually play WoW, just be in the WoW category, and be like, I think Asmon's got a bad point here. I think he's going about it the wrong way. And then you just talk about it. People will like ping him. He'll have to watch it, etc. He gets content. You get content. You get to fucking leech that shit. And it's just cyclical. That's why people do react videos, right? It's why people watch stuff like they're like, oh, recommend me a YouTube video. It's like watch a famous person react to this, and then you can react to them or watch one of their rants and stuff.
All right.
That's why LSF does so well.
Yeah, so next week on our prepared reacting to Asmongold segment, we'll have that ready.
Oh God. Oh.
But yeah. Oh, that's right, guys. But I will have the highlights channel up and running, I think, this weekend. So we'll have the prepared podcast highlights. What did someone gave me? Someone gave me the acronym. What was it? PPC, prepared podcast clips. The PPC
Wait
channel.
a second. Wait, no, that's some payo. Wait a second. You that's not PPC. you take it from the prepared podcast clip, the real PPC. Oh no.
All right, but yeah, we'll catch you guys next week, guys. It was a fun one, a long one. It's episode 23. Take care. We'll see you guys next week.
Yep. Have a good one.